Good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 27 of Nationalist Review here on America First Media. We have a big, busy news week ahead of us to get into on today's show, and it's kind of good we were a day late with the program because we have so much more to talk about, so many stories now developing Sunday morning, including this great story with our pal Stephen Miller over on Jake Tapper's show over on CNN. This is, of course, James Alsop, joined as always by the man himself, Nick Fuentes. How's it going, man?
It's going well. It's a little chilly down here, a little chilly in the basement, and as you might be able to tell, I am a bit under the weather. Whatever you had last week, you must have transmitted it through the microphone or something to me, or I don't know, I must have got it from, there's probably 10 people I know that are sick right now, but that's all right. That's all right. We are pushing through. We are persevering to deliver the best content in Nationalist and the Nationalist right today. But how are you doing, my friend James?
I'm doing better. You know, I don't have any diseases weighing me down. I think that's a good benchmark to start with, not being disease-ridden and afflicted. I'm also doing better because I know now that our mugs, which I know we've been talking about on the show for like 3 weeks, and people are probably getting sick of the updates. But for those of you who are out there still waiting for your merch, you will be getting that very shortly. We had another delay from the supplier. I don't know what's going on over there. They were a little bit delayed in getting this shipped out to us. They pushed us back by another, I believe, 5 days. So the new tentative date that we're expecting these to get here is in 3 days from now. I'm expecting them on Wednesday, which means that I'll be able to get them all packed and shipped out by Thursday or Friday. And so they'll be in the mail by this next weekend. So yeah, if you made an order, we have it. We didn't lose your order. Your order wasn't, lost. It's there waiting to be fulfilled. We're waiting on our supplier to get us those mugs. So thanks everybody for your orders. If you have ordered, if you have not already, there is still time to do so. We still have a large quantity available. About half of our second order still available to order over at amfirstmedia.com/shop. If you have not already, check out amfirstmedia.com for articles. We posted my first piece that I've posted there last night, talking about a kid actually from my neck of the woods, a Young Democrats former vice president, and a member of the Mexican separatist organization Mecha, who was arrested and is now facing trial for trying to engage in a little bit of promiscuity with a underage boy on Grindr. So, very, very sick people. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're statutory rapists, and some, I assume, may be good people. You can read that over at amfirstmedia.com. I'm going to be posting my schedule that I wrote last night. Puts me writing 4 articles a week on amfirstmedia.com, at least 4 articles a week. So keep checking that website. I think you'll like what you find. And of course, sharing those articles on Twitter does help us out because I no longer have access to the Twitter. And so we're now 2 for 3 on the America First Media Twitter team. You can send us letters, donations, whatever else you want to P.O. Box 236, Pullman, Washington, 99163. I played that board game Triggered with my roommates and some friends earlier this week. It was pretty fun, pretty hardcore facts in there. It's kind of like a trivia game. You got to be 300 IQ. Nick, I mean, if we know that these people who watch our content, listen to our show, they're at least 250 IQ, but this is a game you really have to be 300 IQ for, at least, to know all the facts in this game. So fun stuff. But yeah, if you want to send in letters or whatever, P.O. Box 236. Nick, I have a package to send you, actually. That Christmas gift we talked about earlier.
That's right.
I'll be sending that out this week. Yeah.
Excellent.
Christmas is coming late.
Yeah, no, this is good. I like the... It's like a timed release of Christmas presents. It's instead of get them all at once on Christmas Day, you get them spread out. I kind of like that. It's more, I don't know, you keep the Christmas spirit going on a little bit longer. The excitement continues. It's like it's a slow burn. It's a tease. There's something to be said about that.
I think there's actually like a psychological reason for that, because when you get the Christmas gifts, like you're getting, it's triggering like that feel good pleasure response of receiving a gift, but it's triggering like all of that at once. And so you'll get a bunch of gifts, you'll probably get, let's say you get like 30 different things, whether it's socks or like a bag of candy or a really nice gift like a laptop or a TV or something. You'll get like 30 things on Christmas Day. But just imagine, like, if you were to get like one of those gifts every week from people who are giving you gifts, it would feel like it'd be luxury. It's like, oh, this week we got you, this new thing of socks. Oh, this week we got you this new, sweater. It's like, oh my God, wow, I'm pampered, and you'd be getting that gift response like 30 times. So yeah, no, I think you're onto something there with that idea. Definitely. Hey, you know what else is a gift that keeps on giving? Is Steve Bannon, Sloppy Steve. So for those of you who don't know, we talked about the story on Wednesday. There was a very public spat between the former documentary filmmaker, current Breitbart News chairman, and former White House advisor, Steve Bannon, and the president. There are these accusations in this Michael Wolff book. Michael Wolff is a known liar, a known fiction writer. Even this is coming from people on the left, like his cohorts on the left, to describe this Michael Wolff guy, the author of Fire and Fury, the groundbreaking new Donald Trump White House book. They describe Bannon. They describe Michael Wolff as a total charlatan. But this book from Michael Wolff describes Bannon making some very interesting statements about Don Jr. and the Russians. He describes the meeting between Don Jr. and the Russian lawyer as treasonous, and there are all kinds of other comments in there that Bannon allegedly made about Don Jr., about Ivanka, about Jared, about the president himself. And this stuff is not good. This actually set Trump off and caused him to release a very scorched earth statement this past Wednesday, essentially condemning Bannon, saying that he lost his mind when he lost his spot in the White House, and disregarding any of these quotes, disregarding the veracity of a lot of. Or no, Trump didn't dispute the veracity of these quotes. Trump disputed Bannon's character and disputed Bannon's stature and political ability. So this is the latest failure for Bannon. A lot of people were making out. I was able to see this through some incognito Twitter browsing, the incognito tab, and like searching up timelines of people who I trust and admire their takes. I was seeing some of this narrative that Trump is just throwing Bannon overboard for no reason, right? Trump is throwing Bannon overboard, and this is dumb for Trump to do. I saw this a lot from some more like conservative talk on Facebook as well. And this is, of course, isn't true. This is the latest debacle. Whether you believe these quotes are real or not, this is the latest in a series of Bannon follies. From the Roy Moore debacle, the inability to field a series of candidates, and the attacks on Paul Nehlen, Bannon has had a rough couple of weeks. So on Thursday, the week got rougher for Bannon. Breaking news after our show: conservative donor Rebecca Mercer decided to publicly side with Trump and cut Bannon loose. So Bannon's kind of out on an island, Nick. Who is he going to turn to now for political support and, more importantly, financial support?
Nobody. I mean, the guy is dead in the water, politically speaking. And we talked about this last week, or on Wednesday, rather. He isolated himself from the media. He isolated himself from the GOP establishment. He isolated himself really from everybody except for Donald Trump in the White House, and now that's gone. So, I mean, he's got nothing. This guy is toast. And even on Breitbart, they're not pleased with him, I imagine. I know the readership isn't pleased with him. I can't imagine the editors and the writers there are too thrilled about losing their connection to the White House. I mean, that's one of the few things that would give them an advantage over some of the other publications. So, I mean, the guy's toast, and I don't know, it's just difficult to explain. I mean, I suppose it could kind of fit into the narrative that was playing for a long time, that Bannon and Trump were fracturing because of this rivalry between the Kushners and Bannon, because of this conflict of visions between the Kushner moderate wing and the Steve Bannon hardcore wing. I mean, there are a lot of, it fits the narrative where you have all these different, I guess, fault lines that were going on in the White House and the West Wing. And so I guess it could fit into there, but it's just tough because this was so sudden. This was so out of the blue. I mean, it was one morning we heard from The Guardian, this excerpt from the book, and then within hours, Steve Bannon's political career was dead with the most scathing statement the president has said really about anybody. I mean, that was more brutal, what he said about Bannon, than Hillary Clinton, than Barack Obama, than anybody. And I don't know, it's just tough to wrap my head around that. Maybe there was more going on behind the scenes that we weren't aware of. But it's also interesting how the president has continued to attack the credibility of the author. And the credibility of the author has been more than delegitimized, even in the mainstream press. The guy that wrote it, Michael Wolff, I mean, this guy's a liar. And President Trump at once says Michael Wolff is a liar. He's totally not credible. He had no access to the White House. But then at the same time, he took what Steve Bannon said and he's using that to go after him. And Steve Bannon, he never really denied what he said, but he never really went out and repeated that either. If you remembered, I think it was on Wednesday, he went on his Sirius XM program for Breitbart. And he said that Donald Trump is a great man, and I will continue to defend him. And that's the only thing he said directly about it since it happened. So none of this sits well with me. It just seems a little bit off. I'm not sure what I know I said that last time. Maybe it's just we don't have all the information. That could 100% be the case, but it just doesn't feel there's something not right here that doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I think you're right. We don't have all the information for sure. Like, there's a lot more information, and especially on the topic of the leaks in the White House, I've seen a lot of rumors that Steve Bannon was in fact one of the ones leaking, and he was caught leaking information to left-wing blogs and left-wing news agencies that would discredit and further fuel the division between Jared, Ivanka, and the president. I think that's actually been proven. I don't have the source on that in front of me, but we did see the leaks stop once Bannon left the White House, right? We haven't seen any leaks since Bannon has been gone. But I don't know if this necessarily speaks to the personal conflict narrative so much as it speaks to a new narrative about Bannon simply not being that competent, right? Trump, as we know, likes to surround himself with people who are competent, and for better or for worse. I mean, he's surrounded himself with some people who are dangerously competent, but also dangerously neoconservative and dangerously war hawkish. And we've seen that throughout his presidency. And when we look at what Bannon was doing, I certainly think that Bannon served Trump better on the outside. It was better for Trump it was better for the Trump agenda to have Bannon on the outside and have that plausible deniability and able to say, look, I'm just a guy, I'm not part of the White House. I'm running this campaign to unseat incumbents, because Trump couldn't have a White House official out there like running campaigns trying to unseat incumbents. Like, he just could not do that. So it served Trump's interest better to have him on the outside, but he wasn't all that successful at it. And, we can look now at some of the stuff Bannon was doing a few months ago, like the speech to Zog, right? We talked about this at length on the show, and I was very questioning of it. And you said that it has to be part of something bigger. And I think you're right. It was part of something bigger. It was an indication that Bannon's connections were running dry. We're seeing now reports that Rebecca Mercer hasn't spoken to Bannon in 3 or 4 months. And if Bannon was cut off from the Mercer money, then it makes sense why he was out looking for the Adelson bucks and the Zog cash and all this other stuff. And it didn't work. The funny thing is, it didn't even work to get him that money, right? I mean, this would all make sense. It would make sense that Bannon simply burned bridges privately, and this was kind of like popping bursting the bubble publicly, that this guy is just out on his own.
I don't know. I mean, I might agree with that if it was a more cordial break, if it was a more cordial and a polite break, because President Trump has fired like 10 people since he got into office, or since he got inaugurated. He's fired all kinds of people in his cabinet. And every time he sees somebody go, either from even the transition team or even during the campaign, or especially during the presidency, it always is pretty ruthless in the buildup to it. He's very public in insulting people, these kind of snide comments. But once he fires them, it's always very cordial. It's always, they were good and they did a good job. And, like Reince Priebus, when Reince Priebus got fired, it wasn't this ugly. It didn't even approach this ugly. It got kind of, with the buildup with Anthony Scaramucci, obviously was very contentious, and President Trump, there were some things like kind of leaked about how Priebus didn't really defend himself, didn't really fight for himself. But compared to every other exit from the White House, this was brutal. This was the worst by far. And so maybe it was incompetence, but I don't think President Trump, it would be that brutal and scathing and ugly and what a public spat it was, just because he wasn't doing a good job, right? I mean, I think it has to be personal.
Right. If it weren't for the Paul Wolf comments, exactly. Like, if it weren't for those comments in this Paul Wolf book, which every indication we're getting is that Trump just saw these comments in the media and was like, okay, well, fuck this guy. He's incompetent anyways. Let me torch him. That's kind of how this process went down, is at least what we're seeing. I think you're right. It would have just been a silent understanding between the two of them. And Trump would have just seen Bannon privately as not very competent. But these Paul Wolf comments are what set him over the edge. And in his 4-paragraph statement, Trump cited this. He said, quote, "Now that he's on his own, Steve's learning that winning isn't as easy as I made it look. Steve had very little to do with our historic victory, which was delivered by the forgotten men and women of the country. Yet Steve had everything to do with the loss of a Senate seat in Alabama held for more than 30 years by Republicans. Steve doesn't represent my base. He's only in it for himself." So yeah, he's getting into the idea that Bannon is not very competent there. And then he goes on to say, "We have many great Republican members of Congress and candidates who are very supportive of the Make America Great Again agenda. Like me, they love the U.S. and are helping to finally take our country back and build it up rather than simply seeking to burn it all down." Of course, that last comment there is a reference to Bannon's statement that he wants to burn it all down with regard to the GOP establishment. So yeah, I think this is a culmination of incompetence set over the edge by the personal Paul Wolf comments. But speaking on Bannon's incompetence, I mean, we aren't just trying to retcon this. We aren't just trying to create this narrative in absent of truth. You can look at Steve Bannon's track record so far, and this speaks to the question: what happens to Bannonism? Right? Bannonism is essentially the alt-right politics without the alt-right personalities. It's this radical Tea Party economic populism that doesn't really have a message to it. You can't sum up what Steve Bannon's message is in a succinct way that's going to win voters over. Bannon has repeatedly rejected any more, I guess you could say, more grounded forms of nationalism. He has repeatedly dismissed any concerns for maintaining demographics and as stupid and counterproductive. And the economic nationalism is all we need to worry about, and race doesn't matter. And he has attacked people like Paul Nealon. So Bannonism is effectively the alt-right politics without the alt-right personalities, without the alt-right marketing ability. I mean, say what you want about Cernovich or Jack Posobiec, but they have a better command of their social media platforms than Bannon does. They have better interaction with people, even though it is pretty bad, than Bannonism, than any other mouthpieces of Bannonism that I can think of. And Bannon hasn't actually been identifying candidates is the other problem. The only candidate Bannon has actually identified and tried to persuade to run is Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater, and actually, ironically, the brother of Nancy DeVos. I didn't know that, or Betsy DeVos. And that's the only guy Bannon's been trying to convince to run. Other than that, he's been latching on to pre-existing candidates that have existed before Bannon. Michael Grimm in New York existed before Bannon. Kelly Ward in Arizona, pre-Bannon. Tarkanian in Nevada, pre-Bannon. Roy Moore in Alabama, pre-Bannon. You can't look at what Bannon's doing. You can't look at Bannon's track record of work and point out a lot of shining examples of overabundant competence. Can you, Nick?
I just don't understand why you use Tea Party as an epithet. I don't understand where all this animosity comes from towards Steve Bannon and towards like anything that's not hardline white.
It's not animosity. What has he done? What has he done?
Well, he got Donald Trump elected. He was the campaign manager for Donald Trump, and now he is putting together.
Trump was winning way before Bannon.
I think you could say the same thing about like all of the alt-right. I mean, what have they done? I mean, they're working towards something in the same way that Steve Bannon is working towards something, and Steve Bannon has candidates. Steve Bannon he has 2 candidates of his own. And then he's also taking on other candidates that existed before, and he's trying to help them, or, before the spat. And this Tea Party epithet, the Tea Party was very successful. The Tea Party got candidates elected. The Tea Party got actual congressmen in the legislature to write legislation. Now, granted, it wasn't a second American Revolution. It wasn't massive, but I mean, you have to start somewhere. The Tea Party has done more, and this is the unfortunate reality, than the alt-right, than anything the alt-right has done. And that's not a dig That's not to say anything more than before we go throwing that around as an epithet, like that's this laughable, silly kind of a thing. Well, the Tea Party got people in the Congress. They're one step ahead of the alt-right in that sense. And we're so quick to turn up our noses and say, oh, we could never be associated with something like that. We have to learn from our history here. So I don't think it's necessarily an epithet to say that he's like a Tea Party type guy. And on the subject of like ethno-nationalism versus economic nationalism, I think the reason he doesn't talk about demographics is because, unfortunately, in 2016 and 2017 and 2018, that platform doesn't win elections. I'm sorry, but you go to any of these swing states, you go to a place like
2016.
You go to what?
One in 2016. I mean, Donald Trump's campaign from the very beginning was about demographics, was about immigration. Immigration was the Trump issue.
Which states swung him the election? It was Wisconsin, it was Michigan, it was Pennsylvania. Did those states vote for him because of immigration, or did they vote for him because of trade? They voted for him because of trade in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania.
The failures to see those two things as separate issues. They are inexplicable. They are inseparably linked.
Here's the point,
right? Because immigration, as we know, results in wage reduction, results in worsening economic conditions, especially for middle class and working class Americans. And those people are also concerned about cultural shifts in the United States. These are people who are not.
They're not.
Really, the white working class is not concerned about a shifting culture.
They're really not. They're really not. If you look at white voters in the Midwest, and I'm from the Midwest, and you talk to these people, yeah, they're concerned about the cultural shift. Yeah, they're concerned about demographics. But what they go out and vote for is taxes. They go out and vote for dollars and cents. They go out and vote because they want jobs. That is, it's always about the economy. That's how the saying goes. It's the economy, stupid. That's what all elections are about for the most part. And I think that'll change over time. But I think presently, and this has been the conventional wisdom for a long time, elections are about economics. And you and I understand it. Like I don't understand that immigration is connected to economics. Of course it is. But if you're talking about the average voter, the connection between immigration and like their day-to-day job, it's not ever present. It's not direct. Maybe they haven't even made that connection. For most people, it's about trade. It's about taxes. It's about, can they get a job? Is the economy good? And the history bears this out. Under Clinton had terrible approval ratings, but he survived in midterms and in the general elections on the strength of his economy. The same was true of George W. Bush. I mean, that's how it goes. And so Steve Bannon focusing on economic nationalism, I don't think that necessarily means that he doesn't care about demographics or he doesn't care about race. I think that's the strategy for winning elections. And the people that he's going to put into office would be people that would be stronger on immigration than the people that came before. And if they were stronger on immigration, but they wouldn't win with that kind of rhetoric, maybe they would be stronger on an economic nationalist, more of a, quote unquote, inclusive. I know we don't like that. I know that's not principled, but it is practical. I mean, wouldn't you prefer that as opposed to having no seats, having no candidates, having no money, no massive political reach, and just sitting around jerking each other off?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we could win a lot of elections running people like Josh Mandel in Ohio, or running people like like Marco Rubio, who would have a great appeal. We could win these moderate elections by running people who are like total squishes and virtually policy indistinguishable from the left. Like you might be able to do better electorally with people like that, but unfortunately that's not going to save the United States. That's not going to save America. At some point, you're going to have to be honest with the American people, and we're going to have to be honest with the voters that instinctively know this to be true, that demographics do matter. At some point, you're going to have to be honest with people, and should we wait till whites are 40% of the population or 30% to start talking about the importance of demographics when elections will be unwinnable? I don't think so. I think that the election of Donald Trump proved that people are ready to start thinking about these things. They're ready to start thinking about what it is to be an American with the lens of America's founding stock and America's racial history being considered as part of that. And to say that we can't talk about demographics yet is essentially to surrender. And to cede that ground to the left.
You're really straw manning me here. I've not all of what you're saying is like a caricature of my position. It's a straw man. I didn't say run moderates that are like Marco Rubio, because Marco Rubio.
No, I didn't say you did. But what I'm saying is that if you really want to be winning elections, that's what you would do.
No,
if you really want to be winning every election, competitive everywhere, that's what you would do. But
that's not
I don't think.
That's not what I said. And I also didn't say that we can't talk about demographics. And I also didn't say that it's not time for American people to start thinking about demographics. But if we're talking about 2018, you know, the quote unquote Overton window that everybody talks about, which I think is a retarded concept. And, you know, maybe people don't like to hear that, but I'm really sick of hearing about it. I think that is an abstraction which just has no basis in reality. It's not going to move between now and between the midterms or the primaries for the midterms. And so for Steve to expect Steve Bannon to be going out there and trying to quote unquote red pill the masses on race and IQ or, you know, America's racial and ethnic past. Look, I get the utility of it. I get the utility of it for people like us who are trying to change the narrative and people who are trying, and we're thinking like middle long term. We're thinking in the next 5 or 10 years. But for somebody that's thinking within 1 year, like Steve Bannon, he's got to be focused on the message for this year. And this year, we're not going to be turning back 50 years of Judeo-Marxist conditioning. That's not going to happen. We're not turning the clock back 50 years in 6 months, unfortunately. And so this expectation that Steve Bannon is going to be like winking at us and he doesn't have to condemn us to get the money. And that's not a defense. That's just the reality of the situation.
He didn't get the money anyways.
What's
he didn't get the money from Zog anyways. He didn't get the money from Zog anyways.
Okay. But well, there you go, though. Maybe that might have had to do with what happened with Milo, who got burned by the Mercer family for being associated with Richard Spencer. Well, you can laugh all you want, but the fact of the matter is that I think you would rather have no legislative gains, no candidates, no legislators, than have somebody that's going to counter signal, you know, your pet ideology or your pet thing. Like we're all on the same team here, James. We all want the same thing eventually. And we all talk about how we want different approaches, but then when it comes to different approaches in practice, then everybody suddenly has a big problem when somebody isn't going 100% all in and all the rest. And so, you know, I think you're kind of reading into the Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, what you want to see. You know, Steve Bannon just put out a statement denying everything he said. This just came out like a half hour ago. I just found this, where he said that his support has been unwavering for the president and his agenda. And he's shown that in his national radio broadcasts and Breitbart and blah, 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 that he's shown that he was the only candidate who could. I mean, he really went on and gushed about the president, about Don Jr. And so he's defending himself. He never came out with a statement on Wednesday. You know, something else is going on here. I don't think like Donald Trump burned Steve Bannon because what, like he wasn't. And that's he was incompetent. And then you pile on and you say, well, and also he wasn't an ethno-nationalist, and that wasn't good enough. I mean, I think you're piling on a little bit. I think you're kind of going outside the scope of the facts that have presented themselves.
Well, I never. Again, I mean, you're just now you're just making things up that I didn't say.
Well, what?
Trump. The reason Trump made the statement he did on Bannon was because Bannon was running bad candidates, Roy Moore. B, was not finding candidates, was not living up to his stated objective of primarying, you know, dozens of representatives across the country. He has fewer than 10 campaigns that he has his fingers in, and by having his fingers in these campaigns, most of the time that just constitutes a photo op. He doesn't have any official positions with any of these campaigns. He has not developed any campaigns of his own, any candidates of his own. None of these people who are running right now, who have officially announced their candidacy, were groomed, so to speak, by Bannon. The guy is not effective at what he's doing. And look, he can prove me wrong. The thing is, Bannon can prove me wrong by going out there and getting some candidates to run and running some primary challenges. And even if he doesn't win, just fielding good primary challengers would be more than Bannon's done so far. So far, Bannon hasn't done that at all. And the clock is ticking because the 2018 2018 primaries are just a few months away, 5 months away in many of these states. And the fact that Bannon doesn't have any candidates running speaks to, I think, his competence on this issue. And we can say he's playing this long game strategy, but I don't think he is. I think Steve Bannon genuinely is a person who does not think demographics and race matter. If you talk to many of the Tea Party folks, they will tell you the same thing. They will tell you that demographics and race do not matter. And so while they can be an ally on certain economic issues, certainly they can be an ally on low taxes or an ally on tariffs or an ally on things like that. When you start talking about immigration controls for the sake of protecting national identity and immigration controls for the sake of maintaining a population that resembles the population this country's had for 200 years, that's going to be something they are not as keen on, right? They will say, like Bannon has said, that the race of people coming into the country doesn't matter. Bannon has said this. He said that he doesn't think that economic nationalism, that race has any impact on his philosophy, because everybody can participate in economic nationalism and everybody can have the Constitution. Yeah, that's fine. And that's true. But that's why simply economic nationalism will not be enough to save the country, because economic nationalism paired with a Brazilified demographic situation, it's going to be a waste of time fighting for that. And to say that talking about demographics makes a campaign unwinnable simply isn't true. Trump talked about changing demographics his whole campaign. Trump's, from the very first speech he gave, it was explicitly and explicitly.
There it is. Both. There it is. Implicitly.
Okay. Well,
implicitly, which is a big difference. And you're saying
explicitly and explicitly. He said that Mexican immigrants are rapists and murderers. I mean, that's about as explicit as it can get. Called for a complete and total Muslim ban. That's about as explicit as it can get. This guy was out there speaking very real truths to power about immigration. And he wasn't doing it. He wasn't using the exact same rhetoric that someone like me would use. That's fine. He was still talking about the importance of demographics in a way that made millions of Americans consider this topic they had not considered before. And those millions of Americans showed up, especially in the swing states, and voted him president. So to say that demographics is a issue that shouldn't be talked about, that's not a winner. Simply not true.
I literally just said, I never said you couldn't talk about it. I never said that.
And you want proof of that? Look at Roy Moore in Alabama, who didn't talk about immigration and demographics, and he lost.
That's a good control. That's a good, a guy with a child sex scandal that went on for 4 weeks, ran a terrible campaign, had the RNC turn their back on him. There was historic high Democrat turnout, historic low Republican turnout. That's a good control to use in this to judge. But look, you say Steve Bannon has no candidates. He has more than 10, and you're saying, oh well, he didn't convince them.
Who does he have?
I'll pull up the list for you. I'll pull up the list for you. You recall this? I mean, you're going to pretend like this doesn't exist. This list of candidates that he had. Do I have to pull it up, or are you going to pretend?
Yeah, no, I have it right here in front of me. It's Michael Grimm, Kelly Ward, Danny Tarkanian, and potentially Eric Prince.
Let's see.
Okay. Well, all of these people were involved in politics.
If you're going to play dumb, I'll have to go in and find it, because he had a whole list of candidates. We talked about this on Nationalist Review like 2 months ago.
Oh, Josh Mandel, who dropped out of the race.
Let's find it.
We can find that list here as we go. The thing is that, and I guess we could talk about Josh Mandel too, and there's a big development in that race. Thing is, I am willing to let Bannon prove me wrong. I'm willing to let Bannon prove me wrong by running good candidates, by fielding winners, or by fielding even candidates who make the GOPE sweat a little bit. Frankly, Bannon hasn't done that. The only candidate who is out there really making waves is Nealon, and Bannon has disavowed and distanced himself from him. So, look, Bannon wants to play political operative, wants to play kingmaker. Go make a king, Steve Bannon. Go be a kingmaker. Go prove yourself competent of doing that. Because all I'm seeing so far is a lot of talk, a lot of self-laudatory talk, a lot of him taking photo ops with candidates. Not a lot of actual campaigning, not a lot of actually getting people in office. So, let's see it happen.
So you have all the ones that you listed, and then on top of that, you have Josh Hawley in Missouri, you have Matt Rosendale in Montana, Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, Kevin Nicholson in Wisconsin, and that's on top of the ones that you just read off. So that comes out to what, 9 or 10? And again, your criticism is not, it's like, well, he has 10 candidates running, but he didn't convince all of them to run. He only endorsed them. He only is throwing the weight of Breitbart behind them and trying to be a broker for money and connections to them. And that's not good enough. I mean, again, you're making, in the words of you during the optics debate, you're making perfect the enemy of the good. This is good. These are people that would have voted for Donald Trump's agenda. These are people that would have voted for the wall, for increased immigration security, for the RAISE Act potentially, for, all kinds of things. But because they're not sufficiently edgy enough, because they're not, pushing the Overton window, we're going to say, no, we can't have it. And you say he's incompetent because Roy Moore lost in Alabama. I mean, you're saying like, well, on the one hand, he's never forayed into politics. He has no experience. But then on the other hand, he's a complete failure because one race went down in flames. Because one race
he's failed so far. Yeah, he's failed so far.
Even though
objectively he has failed so far.
Come on.
And I've never said that we can't support these people. We should support these people. But to say that Bannon is the impetus for them running is not true.
Again,
these people would have been running.
Didn't say not for Steve Bannon. Keep straw manning so hard. Nobody said he was the impetus for them running. Why does he need to be the impetus for them running? What is going on here where it's like, if Steve Bannon wasn't the genesis of a campaign, he's not responsible for helping them.
So if you remove Steve Bannon from the equation, things are exactly the same. Okay,
that's
cool.
Not again, and so nobody said that. And you keep again. No,
that's what I'm saying.
Keep saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, and he's only going there and doing a photo op. Where's the story for that? Where's the evidence for that? You are projecting that. That does not exist. He's backing.
He doesn't have an official role with any campaign.
Do you have to have an official role? Does he have an official role with the White House after he got ousted and he was helping the president from the outside? And they continued to be in a good relationship? Of course not.
It turns out he wasn't helping the president.
He was even helping the president during the campaign when he was running Breitbart. And so to say that, he doesn't have an official position in the campaign. Yeah, super PACs don't have an official position in a campaign, and but they don't help the campaign, right? You need to have an official, all these weird requirements. Bannon must be the genesis of the campaign. Bannon must have a position on the campaign. Bannon must be out there, I guess, on the ground delivering flyers, photo op, and like getting people connected and getting the money and putting them on Breitbart. That's not enough.
Look, I mean, you're talking past me. It's fine. He needs to be doing something. He's not. The one candidate he's aligned himself with lost. So look, again, I will say this again. If Bannon wants to demonstrate his ability as a political operative, which currently there's nothing there, but if he wants to demonstrate that ability, then fine. Go out and run winners. I'm not going to stand in your way. And if they're good candidates who may not be sufficiently on my side on every single issue, but if they're good candidates who are going to stick up against the GOP establishment and are going to fight for immigration controls, then great. More power to you, and I will support those candidates. I will support those candidates because they're good candidates, though. I will not be supporting them just based on the Bannon endorsement, based on the Bannon name. So, look, Steve Bannon, I want him to keep doing what he's doing. I want him to keep, as long as he's not working against the Trump agenda, which is looking like he's saying he's not going to. So, if Steve Bannon wants to go out and help candidates run their races, great. And we can find out if he really is a good political operative, if he really has an eye for winners. We'll find that out in 2018 when these candidates go up against their establishment challengers. But so far, a lot of these candidates that are out here and that are aligned as Bannon guys have been distancing themselves from Bannon. You can look at Michael Grimm in New York, who's saying, Bannon's comments on Trump don't represent me. He's not a part of my campaign. I support the president. Kelly Ward, same thing. I support the president, not Steve Bannon. Tarkanian is the only guy you can look at as being more Bannon aligned, but that's going to change very quickly, I would assume, as his base is more loyal to Trump than Bannon. So look, Bannon can prove everybody who's saying this wrong. Bannon can prove himself to be great and talented and all of this stuff. Got to run a winner, though. You got to field a winner. And let's see that happen.
Yeah. Again, though, this is after the fact. This is after Trump burns him publicly and defeats his political career. Now, it's irrelevant whether or not he can be a kingmaker now because the president disowned him. A week ago, when you had this position a week ago, I would say yes, and I would put my money on Bannon. But after this, which is, I think it's unexplainable for the most part. I mean, we can have, again, our theories, our hypotheses, which are untestable about what's going on in the West Wing after what happened between Trump and Bannon. I mean, Bannon's not going to be able to run candidates. I mean, you're going to need Trump. The base is behind Trump, not behind Bannon. So, I mean, to say that it was incompetence, he lost one race, and you think Trump burned him, made it impossible for him to back these other candidates because of the one race. I don't know. But I would just say to everybody, look at what Henry Kissinger said about what's going on in the White House. And I'll just leave it there. Look at what Henry Kissinger said about Steve Bannon and Donald Trump, what Steve Bannon was trying to do there. And I'll just leave it at that, because people have it in their head like, I guess everybody that's not in this little fucking club is a shill. Everyone that's not in this little club reading the same books, talking about the same shit in the same way, they can't be trusted. We can't support them. They're no good. We can have no permanent place in politics if they don't get the go ahead from, this particular class of people. Well, just look at what Kissinger said about what's going on in the White House. And I would just leave it at that. I tend to side. Well, I don't want to pick a side between Trump and Bannon, but I am not so quick to write off Steve Bannon because of that.
What did Kissinger say?
He said,
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Google that one. See what's going on there. That's so. Well, and that speaks to this next story too. Josh Mandel, who I mentioned earlier, who was the candidate for Senate against Sherrod Brown, has dropped out due to health issues with his wife. Josh Mandel was a Bannon-aligned guy. He was a strongly pro-Israel candidate, which makes sense, being Bannon-aligned, and a career politician, a member of AIPAC, and not much track record on immigration. He's not said much on the topic of immigration. He is likely going to be replaced in the race. Oh, and by the way, Josh Mandel probably would have won the Senate race in Ohio here, because Ohio went decidedly for Donald Trump. And especially in a primary year, there's a real shot that Mandel could take out Brown when Democrat turnout, as we know, is lower usually in non-presidential years. But he's likely going to be replaced in the race after Mandel drops out. He's going to be replaced by a guy named Jim Renacci, who is a Italian businessman and current House rep from Ohio. Renacci has a very strong track record on immigration. In 2010, Renacci said, quote, "I am 100% opposed to amnesty for illegal immigrants. The U.S. government should never be in the practice of issuing any form of legal benefits to those whose first act in our country is violating our federal laws." So this is overall very good news. I know a lot of people were very concerned. They were deeply concerned when Mandel dropped out, because he was, again, one of these guys who looked on to be on the way to pick up a very easy seat here in 2018. But when you really look into Mandel's track record and his allegiances, it's clear that he was not our guy. He was using opportunistically the Trump surge to try to advance his own political career. The guy is, again, a career politician. Somebody like Renacci, I should say, much more in line with Trump's agenda, much more in line with who we want to see as a candidate, and much more in line with the blue-collar working class in Ohio. Renacci is a guy who used to be, I think he started as a car salesman and was able to build up a great business doing that. So this is actually very good news, so that the Republican has dropped out in Ohio.
Yeah, that is.
Have you heard anything about this being from nearby?
No, we don't get too much from Ohio, but I mean, yeah, I watch it in the national news, so we don't get it so much in the local news. But yeah, no, this is good. This is good. The key that we need to weed out, because this is a phenomenon that happens in right-wing politics in particular, even more than with the Democrats, is you have these people like, Marco Rubio was a good example last time of the kind of people that we don't want, because, Marco Rubio, when he ran in his primary, he got the support from the Tea Party. Tea Party threw in their lot with him because he said he was going to oppose amnesty. And that was the only difference between Rubio and Charlie Crist, who I believe Charlie Crist was the incumbent. They were running in the primary. And the only difference between them, really, the one that really sold the people of Florida in favor of Rubio was that Rubio was against amnesty. Charlie Crist was for amnesty. And, you know, the Tea Party rallied behind Rubio. He won the primary. He won the election. And then he goes into Congress and he supports the Gang of Eight. And so what we want to avoid, I think that's actually a valid concern, are these candidates who are going to, like you said, who are going to run and try and take advantage of the movement and run and try and take advantage of the grassroots kind of nationalist groundswell. And then they actually support amnesty, or they actually support, you know, backdoor amnesty or legalization or what have you. So this is actually, I think you're right. It's an encouraging story. And I think we're seeing this all around the country. I think we're seeing better candidates. You know, this is obviously it's slow going. It started really with Donald Trump, and we're seeing it start to progress, which is a good thing. It's healthy to see that we have this growth, like in the heartland of the country. Like Paul Nealon is very encouraging to see that happening, to see a candidate come up there and support the president and also edge a little bit further to the right. I think we would be in a lot of trouble if we didn't see that kind of a thing. That would tell us that Trump was a fluke. It was, you know, a one-time thing. So it's very encouraging. I'm very white-pilled on what we're seeing across the country in this upcoming election.
Right. And that's some of the good news on the right. I think there's actually good news from the left, too. The ACLU has announced they're going to be backing the blue wave, not explicitly, because they can't, it would be illegal. But the American Civil Liberties Union, this is from Politico, rarely an active player in national campaigns, is jumping into the 2018 midterms with plans to spend upwards of $25 million promoting ballot initiatives and issues in contested races across the country. Soaring after a banner year, the ACLU raised $93 million online in the 12 months after Trump was elected president. The civil rights group is in the midst of a dramatic makeover. They aim to rival the National Rifle Association as a force on the left and become a hub of the anti-Trump movement. They are going to be running campaigns or funding campaigns in Kansas, where Chris Kobach is running for state governor, Wisconsin, and in a slate of races for Republican-held House seats that the Democrats are trying to flip. In all, ACLU officials say they expect to get involved in about a dozen races, including for district attorney in California and Texas. So the resistance is galvanizing. Brave resistance is showing up. This is actually very good news for us because these ACLU candidates, they will only be competitive if they're trying to flip Republican districts. They will only be competitive in districts that are already purple. Okay, they'll only be competitive in districts that are already like leaning Republican by +1 or +3. And the only reason a Republican gets elected there is because there's someone like Bob Corker or something like that, or Jeff Flake type of House reps who are RINO. They're rhinos, Republicans in name only. They're not people who are supportive of the Trump agenda. And they are places where just demographically, they're going to be like 50, 55, 60% white, where a nationalist could never win, and even an economic nationalist could never win there. So these are districts that are being occupied by GOP squishes. And from the accelerationist perspective, this is probably good news because you'll be taking out the cucks. They'll be doing our work for us, which will allow the party to have our left flank carved away and allow the rest of us to shift the party rightward and re-envision the party as something that is more grounded, more real, and more serious, and not just a vessel of the donor class. So I think there's definitely a silver lining to this news that the ACLU is dropping $25 million in races across the country. Yeah, no, absolutely. This is, we'll see what happens in 2018, but I think this is a pivotal moment coming up here. We'll really see, I think, whether the movement sinks or swims coming up, and really this will be vindication of either, is this a cult of personality? Is this, like it was in Europe where it was Brexit and then, not a whole lot else? And people are going to take issue with that. But I think you know what I'm saying. People are expecting a lot more in Europe. I think people are even expecting a lot more here. We'll finally see in the midterms if there is that grassroots support, if there is that massive outpouring of, like you said, that support for that real, more serious kind of an ideology, more serious kind of right-wing politics in the country,
or if it was just a fluke, because you got to remember that in 2016, Donald Trump won by very slim margins. I mean, people are quick to throw up, and the MAGA-peds, of course, are quick to throw up that, he won an electoral landslide. Well, you look at the states that he won in: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Florida, and the margins were razor thin. So the idea that like this was boom, like a huge punch. I mean, it was big. It was. I don't mean to diminish it. I mean, I was just as excited and just as white-pilled as everybody else. And it's very big that he contested the Democrats. He broke the blue wall in the Midwest and everywhere else. But to get complacent, I think that's the chief problem. So if we come back in 2018 and we run up these awesome candidates and we purged, like you said, the rhinos and the cucks from the GOP, and we keep moving rightward, I think that will be the best thing that can happen. That's the next step for this movement, because we got our guy in the White House, and now it's time to institutionalize these reforms. And that means changing the tide of moneyed politics, the moneyed interest in Congress. And Spengler writes a lot about this. We need a new class of politicians that is not manipulated by the money, that is not subject to high finance. And that's what civilizations tend towards when they degenerate, is the big money, and then eventually they turn around to a new Caesarism. So hopefully we see that in the Congress. I think we are seeing that. I agree. So big excitement.
Right. Yeah, and we're both, the left and the nationalists, right, both have a vested interest in getting the soft Republicans, the cucks, out of office, because these are people who they may vote for Republican issues on they may vote for what we want on things like taxes or possibly on tariffs or something like that. But they will never put in their opinion, they will never put their career on the line to vote for like immigration quota cuts. They'll never vote for wall funding. They'll never vote for, deportations unless they're permitted to by their donors, or two, unless they realize that the reality on the ground, the political reality of their district, is that they have to, right? If they think it's going to cost them electorally, they will not take a stand for American interests on immigration. They will always take a stand for the multinationals and big finance that bankroll them. So getting these people out of office is good for us. It also removes a lane in the public consciousness that I think is very dangerous, and that is the idea that, I can be a conservative, I can be a Republican conservative, and not think that demographics are important. I can be a totally blind, ethnically blind, conservative right winger and really edgy and based and everything, and demographics won't matter. Right now, with the Republican Party the way it is and the right the way it is, people are given the confirmation bias that yes, they can do that, and yes, that's a tenable position. When in reality, we know, because of demographics, because of different competing group interests, because of human biodiversity and human nature, that is not a tenable position, right? This idea that we can be like economic nationalists that don't care about demographics and things like that, it's not going to last. It's not going to be permanent, because when America's demographics shift to look more like the third world, our politics will then shift to become more like the third world. In terms of things like gang killings and different parties just showing up and voting themselves more stuff from the government. That's the direction our politics will go, and it's not a pretty one. So people on the right need to recognize that you're going to have to take a stand for your country, and just saying, I want low taxes and I don't care about the Ben Shapiro conservatism, right? I don't care about the Browning of America conservatism. It's got to go. It's got to go. And thankfully, the ACLU will be doing our work for us to take people in districts like that out and to get rid of them. And I know people are going to say, you want fewer Republicans in office, and it's going to be bad for the Republican majority. And, the belt has to tighten in order for people to get the message, and in order for people to change their behavior, in order for the party to change its behavior. And I think the belt's going to have to tighten here on Republicans, and they're going to have to realize that this is not a real ideology. This soft GOPe conservatism, not a real ideology, not a position you can hold for very long in given the direction America's going. 30 years ago, you can hold that position just fine, but given the current demographic situation, not going to last.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, that's I think at the root of most of the GOP's problems is It is not a holistic picture of the world in the sense that ideologies used to be, in the way that when people go to the polls and they vote Republican, they vote for an issue, they vote for a policy or whatever. And that's kind of how we've been conditioned to go about our lives. And Republican candidates don't run on really a complete and an internally consistent worldview. But that's what we have to get back to, the kind of corporatist, neoliberal, neocon position, like you said, the having candidates which are vessels for the donor class. It can't last any longer when you have real problems and need a real answer. What we're up against is nothing short of like moral, philosophical relativists who don't believe in objective truth, who don't believe in Plato's forms. I mean, these are bedrock principles of civilization that are being undone, that are being destroyed, and that's a very bad thing. And to have a sufficient answer for that, it can't, like you said, it can't be low taxes, it can't be Israel wars and all the rest. It has to be a real, hard, brutal, radical answer. Perhaps, maybe slowly, but ultimately has to get there. So, but I think you're right. I think we're moving in the right direction. This is the first step in that way, and it'll be big. I think. I think we'll get the returns we're looking for.
Yeah. And the more people too, the more people this can, not voters, because this is not going to affect the base, right? This is not going to affect people's values. This will not change how people see the world or what people hold to be important. But what this will do is it will drive out the opportunists and the parasites like rats from a sinking ship. The Evan McMullin tier conservatives, the Anna Navarro tier conservatives, I could name a lot of names and get very personal here. And I think you would all know the people we're talking about. They will be so disgusted by the dangerous new direction of conservatism that they will abandon it and go embrace what they truly are, which is culturally Marxist degenerates that just want, just want low taxes and gay weed and the ability to put whatever in wherever, in whoever, and marry whoever, and that because that's all they're concerned about. They're essentially hedonists, is their ideology, and they will abandon. They're hedonists that want low taxes, right? Like what is Elliot Hamilton's ideology? Elliot Hamilton is essentially a cultural hedonist who wants low taxes, and whatever money you do spend in taxes, he wants it to go, kill goyim for believing the wrong things. Okay, that's his ideology, fine, but that has no place in the American right wing. That has no place in our new vision of conservatism there, Elliot. Or what is someone like Ben Shapiro's ideology? Ben Shapiro's ideology appears to be low taxes and Reagan and triggering SJWs. What is the basis for his reasoning? What is the basis for his worldview? Talmud. Right. Yeah, okay. Sure. But and that is of course true, and verifiably true. But how do you relay those Talmudic values, or as some could say, Judeo-Christian values, to American voters? You can't. You can't, because they're weird. They're weird and they're creepy, and frankly, they're anti-American. And many of Ben Shapiro's positions are explicitly anti-American. When Shapiro says, it's okay if we replace America's founding stock, we replace America's population with outsiders, with third worlders, with people who are not of America. It's okay if you are replaced, goyim. And of course, he can say that because, he is by definition a dual citizen. He can say that, but to a regular American, I mean, you tell that to someone just out on the street, you go tell that to an American. They're going to tell you to fuck right off because this is our country, goddammit. And this is our people. These are the American people. You're not going to replace us. And most people believe that. Most real Americans do believe that. So how does Shapiro go sell his message of it's okay if we replace the Goyim 2020? How is he going to relay that to voters? It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
True. It's true. That's I think the message overall will win out. I think we will attract more to the cause, and especially the youth. I think the youth is really the future. That's kind of the critical point here. When we talk about politics, right, like in 2018, we have to take into account the boomers. We have to take into account Generation X, and all these people, who are not thrilled about it. And you know, if we're ever going to run for office, no, we love Generation X. We love the boomers. But I mean, really, the key here is Generation Z. They will be the change agents. They're the biggest generation, I believe, since the boomers. And this generation, I mean, people have to really think about what this means for Generation Z. They have been brought up in a country where there has never been racism against black people, at least in their lifetimes. People who were born 96 or 98 and afterwards, this kind of talk about anti-black racism, civil rights stuff, this is the stuff of fantasy. This is stuff of the imagination. The only discrimination that Generation Z knows is against white people. The only country that Generation Z knows is this Brazilified, ethnically diverse factionalism in politics, and these are the people that will shift it rightward. These are the people that will change the culture. These are the people that will demand more than hedonism, that will demand more than the kind of avarice and usury which governs the country today with regards to money and everything else. And they will demand more. They will demand real, nationalism, patriotism, and heritage, and all the rest. And if we play our cards right, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
And the thing about the boomers too is that we've talked about this before. A lot of them implicitly know, and they really know deep down that yes, we are right about everything we're saying. Yes, we are right. Yes, under their supervision, their country has been stolen and fundamentally transformed. And they know that. They know it's true. But due to the combination of their determinants to be the anti-racist generation and the first post-racist generation, due to that moral drive they have, and due to a sense of guilt or shame about not being able to stop what has happened, a lot of them just refuse to admit it. A lot of them refuse to come around on it. But anybody who's above 110 IQ, who's above a 105 IQ, knows what's going on in America, and that goes for people of all ethnicities and backgrounds, right? Everybody knows what's going on here, and those people are going to be they're going to be forced to take their own side. Americans will be forced to take the side of America very, very soon politically. And that's going to cut across generations, cut across age brackets. Either you will be a pro-American person with pro-American beliefs, or you will be anti-American. And the Ben Shapiros and Eliot and Hamiltons, their values and belief systems are fundamentally anti-American. They will be on the anti-American side. And as soon as that cover is eliminated, right now they have the cover of being, they can hold up this umbrella of, I'm a Republican. As soon as that palm tree is forcibly chopped down with the ACLU chainsaw, right? This kind of center left republicanism is just wiped away and burned away. They will no longer be able to masquerade as Republicans, and they will have to come out for what they truly are. And that will be a good day when these people who have values that are fundamentally anti-American can no longer hide and bathe themselves and exist as wolves, or as one could say, rats in sheep's clothing.
Right. And it's happening. I think Paul Nealon is a good example of this, where by virtue of him pushing the issue, as you see this space where people can exist ambiguously become increasingly smaller, where they have to choose up and, like you said, show their true colors. I think that's what we're seeing with Nealon, where he's forcing the issue on people that, whereas these, Judeo-globalist conservatives on the Republican Party used to be able to kind of pantomime and they could kind of go along with it. And Trump kind of initiated this. He inaugurated this. But I mean, really, Paul Nealon has stepped it up to a whole nother level, or a whole different level. I hate when people say whole nother, not a word. But, when he has taken it to the next level, where now these John Podhoretz, even Breitbart has to take a side, where Breitbart has to say, we're really not for America first. We're for America first so long as it doesn't interfere with Israel. We're for America first so long as it doesn't interfere with, Hispanic immigration, Asian immigration, gay marriage, abortion, all the rest. So you're right. I mean, this is happening, and people like Nealon, people like some of these other candidates, they're forcing the issue, and they're making people choose. And ultimately, the American people have to choose.
That Breitbart has been taking that stance under the direction of a certain sloppy Steve, right? See? Coming full circle, isn't it,
well,
there, bud?
you know, whatever. You know what I'm getting. It's different. Short term, long term.
I know what's going on. I'm just memeing. All right. Well, we had more for that first hour, but we'll go ahead and push this to the second hour. We'll talk about Jeff Sessions, talk about Chris Kobach and the Voter Fraud Commission, and everything else going on in the world. We'll be talking about all of that coming up in the next hour. So stay tuned. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to hour 2 of Nationalist Review here. Keeping up our fast-paced and jam-packed show full of content. This was something we were originally going to talk about in the first hour, but we've pushed it now to the second hour here. I'm sure everyone out there has seen this. People on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook freaking out about Jeff Sessions' weed war. You know, oh my God, first they came for my tentacle VR cuckold porn, and now they're coming for my weed. Oh, I'm gonna die. I'm a bug man. Well, basically, you know, bug men can rest assured because the Jeff Sessions weed war is basically nothing. I mean, here's what happened. So Jeff Sessions withdrew legal guidance at the DOJ that instructed U.S. attorneys to not enforce federal law against state legal businesses. So under the Obama administration, Barack Obama instructed the DOJ to not prosecute businesses that were in accordance with state law on marijuana, but in defiance of federal law. For example, here in Washington, I can drive down the main loop around town here, and I will see, I think 4 dispensaries, 4 different marijuana dispensaries. You drive near the Idaho border, and there's 2 more. For people coming over from Idaho, getting their the dank, bruh. Gotta smoke the weed, dude, and watch Rick and Morty because I'm a faggot. You know, so there's a big business around marijuana out here. And basically under the Obama administration, and now so far in the Trump administration, U.S. attorneys would not prosecute or enforce federal law against these people, despite the fact they're in violation of federal law. Now, am I a fan of marijuana? No. Do I smoke marijuana? No. Have I smoked marijuana? Yes, in the past. But not for the past like 2 years now. So, you know, hopefully I can get tarred and feathered by the Gen Z purists last. but you know, not a fan of it. It's disastrous for you. It makes you into a retard. I've seen this happen firsthand with people I know who started smoking weed, and it made them functionally disabled. So is it good? Absolutely not. But does the federal government and do federal law enforcement agents have better things to be going after than weed smoking, Rick and Morty watching, tentacle cuckold porn watching degenerates? Absolutely. Namely illegal immigrants, including the immigrants like this Eduardo Ramos kid who tried to rape a kid. You know, there are things you can be going after that are more important. Right? There are things more important than weed. So basically, this is not going to result in a big crackdown on weed smokers. I know people are very concerned about this, but all of these U.S. attorneys have goals after being U.S. attorneys. They want to be judges. They want to run for office. They have further political aspirations, and they're not going to jeopardize those aspirations by doing the very unpopular thing of prosecuting marijuana businesses, because these people are U.S. attorneys in areas where marijuana has been legalized. Are they really going to, you know, torpedo their political career by enforcing marijuana laws? No, they're not. So nothing's going to happen. Don't worry about it. I suppose if you're further on the right and you wanted, you know, a crystal knock for weed smokers, you may be disappointed. You wanted to see the dispensary windows just like rocked, and you know, glass all over the streets, and you know, bongs being smashed en masse. Sorry, not going to get it, but this is basically nothing. Nick, I know you're disappointed by this.
Yeah, you know, I'm very anti-weed, very anti-weed legalization and all the rest. Or rather, against weed legalization. I don't know. I mean, I think people are pretty hard on the Justice Department. I think people are hard on Jeff Sessions, but I think he's doing a good job overall in the sense that, You look at what's been happening this week where they've reopened the investigation to Hillary Clinton's emails. You see the Inspector General report, which is set to come out. And that's really, I think, a hidden gem that people don't talk about enough is the Inspector General report, which started to go into effect, I think, after the inauguration. And it's targeting pay to play under the Clinton State Department. It's targeting the Uranium One deal, targeting Barack Obama. I mean, all kinds of things. And so I think we are set to see some very good things from the Justice Department. And I talked about this a lot on my show on Friday, all these different investigations which are going on. And it's very white pilling. If you look at the fact that I think the reason they've been laying so low, they've been kind of staying on the sidelines, is because they've been doing a lot of work. And this is vindicated by the fact that Hillary Clinton is actively covering up her trails, in the sense that you see people she's associated with dying in plane crashes, her house goes on fire, the Russia probe is under assault. So I think we will see some very good things from the Justice Department this year. I think, the weed thing, it's kind of like a nothing story, right. But I think the real story is that IG report that's set to come out and some of these investigations that are going on. It's a massive white pill. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, no, I think it is. And I think that, we can all agree that it would have probably been better had Sessions not recused himself from like literally every important investigation. Would be better if Sessions were out there earlier, launching this prosecution of Hillary Clinton, launching this investigation of the Clinton emails. Like have been a lot of missteps by Jeff Sessions, but it is good to see things starting to trend in the other direction. With the reopening of the Clinton email investigation is very good news. And this is not DOJ. This is actually, this is DOJ. This is from WashingtonExaminer.com. This House Intelligence Committee Trump Russia investigation. The Justice Department will give the House Intelligence Committee reams of documents and text messages related to the Trump Russia collusion investigation, as well as allow interviews with key investigators, including Peter Strzok, who wrote disparaging emails about Trump to a colleague and suggested the insurance policy against a Trump victory. So Devin Nunes of California and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein have made a deal where the DOJ is going to be handing over, and again, you would like to see Sessions doing this, not Rosenstein. We know that Rosenstein will be swayed by other allegiances besides his allegiance to the president and the American people, of course. But you'd like to see Jeff Sessions doing this, but it's good. I mean, Rosenstein made a deal with Devin Nunes that the Nunes has pursued the information for months and threatened contempt of Congress charge against both Rosenstein and FBI Director Christopher Wray if they refuse to turn over this information. So Devin Nunes playing hardball with Rosenstein. Good stuff. So essentially what this means is that the House Intelligence Committee will have access now to all of these sealed documents, all of these sealed transcripts that no one else has seen besides the DOJ, and they'll be getting access to them. And they'll be able to use them in order to determine whether or not there was wrongdoing going on at the FBI, which I think it's fairly evident that something was going on that was not exactly above board. Now, they have also been given access to Peter Strzok, who will be testifying, Deputy Attorney General Bruce Orr, whose wife was hired by opposition research firm Fusion GPS to investigate Trump. Christopher Steele is another Fusion GPS employee that they're wanting to get to testify. The list of witnesses who must appear for the House Intelligence Committee also includes former FBI counsel James Baker, attorney Lisa Page, who was the alleged mistress of Peter Strzok, and FBI attorney Sally Moyer. So, dude, the HIC, House Intelligence Committee, is getting access to all of these key players, all of these big names that were part of this deep state attempted preemptive coup against Donald Trump. There's a lot more to drop here, dude. There's a lot more coming. And Rod Rosenstein, the honorable Rod Rosenstein here, may himself be looking at some obstruction of justice charges too if he tries to get in the way of this. This is all very, very good news.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, this is what we've been talking about all week on the show is just this noose that's tightening around the deep state, that's tightening around the Obama administration and all of their affiliates from the past 8 years. And this is, I think, the most underreported story. I mean, this is all like very tedious, a lot of these details and, these connections and small stories. They don't necessarily. What's that?
I somehow queued up the Order 66 drop.
I couldn't tell that was going from my computer here.
Yeah, my bad.
But it's a good prequel name.
The Deep State, I guess.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good omen, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is the most underreported story, I think, because, it's not exciting. It's a lot of tedium. The lay person is not really familiar with all the particulars of these stories. But I mean, you look at what's going on, and this was my hypothesis on the show on Friday, which is that I believe that Hillary Clinton's under investigation, which, I mean, obviously that came out on Friday. I think Barack Obama's under investigation. I think a lot of these Democrat type people are under investigation. I think the Bob Mueller special counsel is probably put together by those allies to delegitimize the Trump government or to possibly cause a crisis of legitimacy in the government, because, you saw with Strzok and Orr coming out as Clinton allies, and some of the other people gave money to Clinton and Obama. Right. And I think that you're seeing just a full-fledged assault on both Clinton and this investigation, because not only do you have the FBI, which reveals they've been investigating Hillary Clinton for months and they've interviewed witnesses, and the Republican senators, I think it was, or no, I'm sorry, that's a different story. But other Republican investigators found out that the FBI knew that Clinton lied, or rather they found out that the FBI knew that Clinton committed crimes and they exonerated her anyway. And at the same time that that's happening, you have the House Intelligence Committee going after the Russia probe. You have Grassley and Lindsey Graham going after the Russia probe. You have Paul Manafort suing the special counsel. Yeah. And so you see that there's just this full-fledged frontal assault against Clinton and this deep state. And I think that's really the most encouraging thing, because that, when Trump talked about draining the swamp, I was encouraged by that, because that is the core of the issue. That's why I supported Trump from the beginning. I didn't even agree with Trump on everything when I first got on the Trump train. I got around to him because I said, this is the only guy who's going to clear the sludge and clear the way for a real legislation to be passed, for real reform to happen. And so the draining of the swamp, in my opinion, is of the utmost priority, because then you get everything else. And so that we're seeing all of these entrenched bureaucratic and political interests being removed, it's very good. And you're right. I think there's a lot more to come here. So right. Good story.
Yeah. And as the news tightens around the FBI, the news necessarily tightens around Mueller as well. And we know the long documented history of collusion and cooperation and friendship between Comey and Mueller. And these guys are loyal to each other. And Comey, I can only imagine what kind of conversations happened behind the scenes between Mueller and Comey, and what conversations continue to happen. Comey's pissed, dude. Comey is still pissed at Donald Trump, still wants revenge. And as Mueller's investigation runs repeatedly into brick wall after brick wall, it's going to become increasingly clear that this thing is not based on any real collusion. It's based on personal vendettas against the president. And I think that what we're seeing now, Mueller is calling back a participant in the key meeting with the Kremlin-connected lawyer. It's like they're out of options here. Like, they're running down dead end road after dead end road on this Trump-Russia collusion investigation. And if there was something here, it would have been out already. If there was proof of collusion, it would have happened already. And so far, we're not seeing it. We're not going to see it. And I feel like the tectonic pressure is really building up around Mueller, underneath Mueller. Right. And you're seeing these different forces start to push against each other. And as the House GOP becomes increasingly agitated about this, because it's standing in the way, they see it as standing in the way of their ability to get their agenda passed. And even like establishment GOP types are like, fuck, we want healthcare, we want tax cuts, and we can't do it with this BS investigation. That's why Graham and Grassley are out there saying what they're saying. You're going to start to see someone needs to make the move, right? There's going to be a shoe that drops. There's going to be someone that sticks their head up and burst this whole thing open. And it's going to happen soon. I would be willing to wager that in the next few months here, someone is going to make a move on this. Either Sessions will nut up, so to speak, and unrecuse himself and put this thing to bed, or something's going to happen. Trump might do it. I don't think Trump would do it, but the House GOP could vote to. I believe the House GOP has the authority to fire the special counsel. The House has the authority to do that. You're going to start seeing people, call for this thing to be wrapped up very quickly, especially ahead of 2018, because the 2018 House candidates and Senate candidates don't want to be tied by their opponents as connected to a president under investigation. They want that investigation to be over and done. Right.
Right. Well, yeah, and that would be the best thing, I think, for the 2018 midterms, is if these swamp mole men characters were out and exposed in front of the, whatever it is, whether it's the IG report, whether it's the, a House Oversight Committee, a probe into the Russia probe, which some are talking about, a special counsel to look into the special counsel. That would be the best thing going into 2018, because not only do you delegitimize the entire Russia narrative and the, Trump is, Putin's puppet thing, at the same time, then the Democrats lose all credibility if they get the Russia probe get taken out from under them. And not only that, but it reveals that there's criminal activity on the part of Clinton or on the part of Obama or anybody else. So this will be a big thing. This will be big not only for Trump and legislation moving forward, but also for the election in 2018. Mm-hmm. So we are going nowhere. I'm highly white-pilled about this year. I've been saying it for months, even though, the Roy Moore thing was a temporary setback. And I think there was, misdoing or wrongdoing there and impropriety, but I'm still very white-pilled about what is to come. And obviously we'll see what the response is. The empire striking back from the Clintons and from Obama and the deep state and all that. But I think if everything continues to go the way it is, we will be in a very solid position. This will be one of the most consequential presidencies in a long time.
We can certainly hope so. We can definitely hope so. And again, ahead of 2018, more good news. The Voter Fraud Commission that was canceled, very publicly put to bed. Donald Trump, I believe, signed an executive order winding down the Voter Integrity Commission that was, of course, chaired by Chris Kobach. This was done not to shut down the commission. This was done to avoid the bureaucracy. Kobach's commission will now live on, not under the purview of Congress, which is I believe where this existed before, or as a special presidential committee. This will now live on under the DHS, which is outside the prying eyes of people who want to sue and judges, renegade judges that want to post injunctions and things to stop this commission from working. They can now go full speed ahead under DHS purview because, of course, under the Obama administration, ahead of the 2016 election, Barack Obama decided that voter integrity would now be a DHS issue, that the sanctity of elections would now be subject to DHS regulation because it was a national security threat. Now, ironically, this is like agreeing with the left for the wrong reasons. I agree with that, right? We agree with that. The integrity of our elections is under threat from foreign governments, but they are foreign governments that are a little bit south of the border and Middle Eastern in nature, not exactly Russianic, not exactly Russo interference going on here. More of a tribal interference and certainly foreign and Mexican interference going on with our elections. Of course, they found, in terms of voter fraud, the biggest issue is non-citizen voting. And we know where these people come from. These people come largely from Southeast Asia, and they come from Mexico and Central America and South America. So, to move this commission and keep it going under a different name, under a different department, this is very, very good news. The DHS, I believe, now has the federal authority to just get these records. They don't have to ask for permission for these things. They can just get them for votes cast in federal elections. I believe they have that authority. The Department of Homeland Security is now determining next courses of action. Chris Kobach was actually in the media and, was very optimistic and very positive about what's going on in these developments. So this is good. This is good for us. And hopefully ahead of 2018, they can crack down on some of these voter rolls, especially in states like Florida, which are now being inundated with foreigners, including Puerto Ricans. Crack down on some of these people who may or may not be legally voting would be a very good thing to protect our odds in these elections.
Agree. Agree. A strong Justice Department is, I think, integral to what we're trying to do here. And I think we're seeing evidence that it exists. A lot of people doubted it, but I think as we move along here, I think Jeff Sessions is proving himself. So we're there. We're solid.
So this is DHS. This is actually Kristen Nielsen, not Sessions. And
well, you know what I mean. I mean both. You need a strong cabinet all together.
Well, yeah, and you know, we have our concerns and complaints about Kristen Nielsen, specifically with her coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, we're considering a deal that involves like a pathway to citizenship for DACA," which is really not her place to make that determination, because this is no longer in DHS's hands. This is in the hands currently of the Congress. But you know, if she's going to be tough on non-citizen voting, she's going to be tough on enforcing our election integrity, then, you know, good. She can at least do that. Hopefully she can, you know, keep her comments and opinions about like mass migration into Europe to herself, and you know her place in the administration in more ways than one. Speaking of course, DACA, there have been some developments, and they're developments that are generally trending positive. I know you put out a little tweet, Nick. I saw it. I have people who alert me to these things, Nick. Don't think you can say things about me on Twitter and I won't hear it, because I certainly did. I know that there's a kind of dynamic right now on the right, especially on the Nationalist podcast right, between Jazz and Halberstram over FTN and myself and you over here. We all have our own different takes. I think Jazz and Marcus are pretty unified in their take on DACA. We have our different take, certainly. But I always see these tweets about DACA, and people always tag you, Jazz, and me. Well, they don't tag me anymore, but they used to tag me. In any DACA development, they would tag the three of us. And we all have our different opinions and narrative on DACA. But I think that the developments of this week, while negative in certain ways, also have the opportunity to be very positive. So this is from townhall.com. President Donald Trump says he won't sign legislation protecting hundreds of thousands of young people and yada, yada, yada. They didn't do nothing wrong. They're brought to the country legally. Nah, they're illegals. Unless Congress agrees to overhaul the legal immigration system. Trump told reporters Saturday at Camp David that any deal must include an overhaul of the family-based immigration system, which is their new way of describing chain migration, right? Family-based immigration. This is the phrase they're now using to replace chain migration. As well as an end to the diversity visa lottery, which draws immigrants from underrepresented parts of the world. Parts of a world, Town Hall says, which is not grammatically correct. That is in addition to funding for his promised southern border wall and added border security. Trump says he thinks Democrats will be on board with the plan, despite their concerns. So just to recap here, the deal that is in place now is the same deal. That the list of demands is the same deal that was sent, on advice of Tom Cotton, Stephen Miller, several months ago to the Democrats. It's like 70-point plan. Demands haven't changed, right? Trump still wants the border wall. Trump still wants the end to chain migration. Trump still wants the end to the diversity visa lottery in exchange for DACA. Now, this is, I think you said this on the last show, this is using the DACA kids as leverage, and it certainly is. The thing is, dude, the DACA kids are so important to the Democrats, they are not going to take this deal. And I think this is putting, you've used the phrase in the past, a double bind. That may very well be what this is. And we may well be able to get the DACA protections lessened once these people start getting deported, and still get everything that we want on our immigration wish list. I don't know. What's been your impression of the deal making procedure this week?
Yeah, no, well, I did tweet that about you, and I said you got to say I was right loud enough so James could hear you, even all the way on the other platform. Well, here's what I see happening. I see the same thing happening, and I said this. The same thing happened in December that happened in August or September, whenever the first round of DACA talks was happening, which was you saw kind of this warming to DACA on the part of the president and this signaling towards the Democrats that he's willing to compromise, that baiting them essentially. And then you punch him in the face. Stephen Miller comes back with the 70-point plan and says, you want the DACA kids so bad, you want the protections? We need $35 billion. We need 18 for the wall and 17 more for everything else, for border security and maintenance and 5,000 new Border Patrol agents and on top of all kinds of other things. So it is the double bind. That's the white pill here is you're right. I don't think Democrats will budge on this. I don't think they will. I mean, they have so much to lose by giving Trump wall funding and ending the visa lottery system and ending chain migration and so on and so forth, that they probably will stall until DACA protections expire, and then deportations will commence. It's my bet that in order to pressure the Democrats further, you'll start to see a pretty visible show of force against the DACA kids, and that will create leverage, that will create pressure. I think that's the play here, and it's good because either the Democrats kill themselves in the long term with a brutal deal that will gut them in terms of immigration and in essence electoral eventually, or they allow the DACA kids to get deported and they kill themselves in the short term. And in 2018, they're not the reliable party of Hispanics or the reliable party of immigrants or whatever, that they might have been counting on, the resistors coming out to fight the president and coming out to show everybody who's, the Democrats are back and all of that. Well, if the Democrats couldn't protect the DACA kids, well, that'll definitely lessen the enthusiasm on their side. So I think this is a big white pill. It just goes to show that Trump isn't giving anything away, which I think is a good thing no matter how you look at it, that any kind of signaling that Trump was prepared to give up DACA, like just for the sake of giving up DACA, or that he would like to give up DACA, I think that's pretty much quelled. That after the second time he's warmed to it, he comes back, he withdraws into this list of demands, which would be suicidal for Democrats. So I think whether you think it's good to make a deal or it's not good to make a deal, I think we can both agree it's a good thing that if he were to concede on DACA, it wouldn't be for nothing. We will get good concessions.
Sure. And like you mentioned, the Democrats, they don't want this. I think the accelerationist perspective on this, if you want things to get messy, and you think about this electorally too, the best possible solution here is for no deal to get done. And you let DACA time out or expire in March, which is when it will expire. And at that point, all of these lawsuits that had been filed by state attorney generals against the U.S. government for DACA, Jeff Sessions has said, and the president has said, we're not going to defend these in court. John Kelly said that too. They're not going to defend, DACA in court against these AGs. So they'll win by default. You're going to see the Democrats, like you said, they will be eaten alive by a lot of their Hispanic activist base, by their Mecha base. They will be tarred and feathered, not literally, but these all 11 million protesters are not going to let this go. They're not going to see the long-term strategy here. They're not going to see the Democratic angle, which is, well, if we win back the Senate in 18 and win back the Congress in 2020 and the presidency in 2020, then we can start doing these things. No, dude, these people are short time preference, right? They are they want things done very quickly. And what's that high time preference? Which is the one where you want things done quickly?
I'm
sure. Low IQ for not knowing this. But yeah, these people want the results now. They want the results today. And if they see that the white leadership of the Democratic Party, to them white, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, don't deliver a deal to protect these DACA kids, dude, you will see the fire that is currently burning on the Democratic left between the different identity groups. Dude, you will see that like a 5-gallon container of gasoline thrown right on top of that, and you will see the Luis Gutierrez's, and you will see the other leftist Hispanic agitators just given their narrative, right? They'll be given what they want. They will be given a opportunity on a silver platter to run internally against this, white, unrepresentative Democratic majority that doesn't represent the base, doesn't represent us, doesn't represent new America, and they will be eaten alive. They'll eat themselves alive. We will be empowering the division on the left if there is no DACA deal, right? I think that can only be seen as a good thing. And even then, I mean, you have to consider the fact that even if you do make a deal on DACA, the Democrats will have to give up so much that it will still cause a lot of those internal divisions to manifest themselves. And they've lost control of their people. They've lost control of the coalition. The coalition has fractured, right? It's the coalition of the disparate now. And dude, the all 11 million people are going to be pissed off if Democrats vote for the border wall.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's no real way the Democrats can win here. And that's a beautiful thing. That's what we want. I think Trump could have taken a number of different paths on this and many other things, but he chose to build it strategically, the 4-dimensional chess. So it turns out it was just plain old strategy, just plain old tactical mindset. And you're right. I mean, either way, whether the DACA kids get sent back and the high time preference Mecca people don't turn out for the Dems, or the Dems give up the border wall and they're just as bad. And so I think we really have a winning hand here. The problem will be for Donald Trump, as I think a lot of people in his own party. I mean, you look at some of the other things he hopes to accomplish here, and it's going to be increasingly difficult. Like, on the one hand, this is a good deal with Democrats, but on the other hand, you look at like Doug Jones getting sworn in, and now we're down to 51 votes in the Senate, and that will just complicate things tenfold. So, we're never really like out of the woods totally. I hesitate to say like anybody should feel like we should be complacent and content, and it's all right. Yeah, and I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm just saying like, you look at some of these other things that are going on, and there's definitely like a counter-reformation underway, or a counter-revolution underway on the part of the deep state, the left, and infiltrating the right even as well. And just got to always be on guard for that. But I think this is a great deal. I think even if we traded our list of 70 demands or whatever for like partial DACA protection or something to that effect, I think it'd be something we'd have to look at, and we had this debate on Wednesday, but I mean, that would be an interesting deal. That would be progress, I think, on top of the comprehensive immigration reform shit that we've seen for 20 years.
Well, what I see happening and what I can easily foresee is DACA expiring in March, and it just runs out. And at that point, dreamers, sorry, you're going back. And we start doing a couple raids on colleges. We start rounding these people up. We start sending them back. And the Democrats realize, like, okay, shit, this is terrible for us. We ran on being the ones who were going to protect these people, save these people from deportation. And we can't even do that. We can't even protect these people. So they will then be forced, kicking and screaming, back to the negotiation table, at which point, Trump will have all the leverage in the world. Right, because these people desperately need something to stop this madness, right, for their base. And you can easily then see a situation where Trump and Congress return and say, okay, look, we'll give you DACA protection, but only for half of them, right? We'll give DACA protection to the first half that applied, and the second half, sorry, but we just can't do that now. And oh, by the way, we're still getting all 70 points we want. We're still ending chain migration. We're still ending the lottery. And all of this stuff. And Democrats you can easily see a situation where Democrats are reduced to such desperation where they make that deal just in order to end the madness, right? In order to end the pain and suffering that their constituency, which is illegal immigrants, are feeling, right? I mean, you can see that happening. So yeah, at this point, I think the best case scenario for us is for no DACA deal to happen, no amnesty to be given, and the Democrats have to watch as their little buddies, their little pets, these brave, beautiful dreamers, many of whom are rapists and murderers and felons, and the ones who aren't are displacing American workers. So all around, all of these people have to go back. They have to watch as they're getting thrown in plastic handcuffs and smacked over the head with billy clubs and thrown in the back of ice fans. And not going to be good optics for the Democrats to watch that happen to their constituents. So they watch that for a little bit, and then they come back to the table and they make an even worse deal for them because they will have no leverage at that point.
You're right. Yeah, no, this is all the way around, some solid strategic positions that we are in. I mean, I think generally, whether you, and like I said before, you said with the Nationalist Review and with TRS and some of the other things where there's this black pill, white pill, DACA perspectives on it. I think either way, you can agree that Trump is putting us in a good position if we were going to make a deal or not. Like regardless of what you think, I think we're moving in a positive direction here. And yeah, I agree. I would like to see the plastic handcuffs come out as well. I would love to see it happen that DACA expires. Trump has to start deporting people immediately. They're locked up on college campuses. I was reading some absurd statistic where it was like a third of all DACA recipients are illiterate. I mean, some outrageous number like that, and not absurd, obviously, like silly, but I mean, just ridiculous that that's the case. These are supposed to be the educated ones. These are supposed to be the winners that come over here. And the third of them are illiterate, So I would love to see these people get rounded up, locked up in handcuffs, thrown in the back of the ICE vans. And then maybe we'll see some real movement there in the legislature. I know that would be a pretty devastating thing for Democrats to have that be on television and for people to see all of that. And then hopefully they get forced into conceding. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. President Trump laid out a detailed proposal for the first time on what the wall would look like. And it's very promising in terms of what he offered. I know people were kind of concerned in August when he talked about maybe a see-through wall, or he talked about, fencing is a wall, and, some of these other silly things.
Yeah, the drones. Yeah, that's
right.
Not a wall.
Yeah, right. But then he finally put out this, well, no, there'll be 1,000 miles of wall and there'll be this and that. I mean, that's really, I think, exciting that's underway and there's plans for that. And it's, at least there is a goal there. Now there's something to fight for. Before it was kind of dubious if the wall was totally there, given what Trump was saying. But now we've got something to rally behind. We've got a plan that's taking shape here.
Yeah, and the Democrats also, they may not be taking this seriously because they've never dealt with someone who's serious about immigration. They have never dealt with a president serious about immigration for at least 50 years in America. For a Republican that is truly, an immigration restrictionist. We haven't had one in certainly in our lifetimes, but even in lifetimes of like our parents, I don't think there's been a Republican that has taken immigration seriously. Perhaps Nixon, you could say, but that being the only exception. They don't realize that he's not George Bush on this. He's not Ronald Reagan on this, who's going to talk a big game and then cave at the last moment. At least I hope that to be true, right? We again, until it's part of the U.S. federal code, nothing is for certain. Nothing is absolutely for certain. But every indication we're getting is he's not going to cave like that squish Ronald Reagan did. So they may not take this seriously until they start seeing people get deported, until they start seeing these illiterate, peasants rounded up and thrown back. And, at that point, when that's on TV, there are these Trump tweets that are just that are so just schmoozing towards the Democrats and so just exuding, this willingness to compromise. You can just imagine, right? You can imagine in June of this year as a, group of undocumented and unafraid are thrown in the back of a unair conditioned ICE van and sent back to Tijuana. You can just imagine, that scene on television transposed next to the Trump tweet where say, look, I want to make a deal and help the DACA kids, but Democrats won't come to the table. And as much as the media will try to, create their narrative about that and spin that in a certain way, truth is, he may have, if the Democrats don't sign this deal, Trump can always say, look, I would have signed it, but you didn't. You
right.
Come to the table and pin all of the suffering of these poor illiterate peasants right back on the Democrats. And
that's right. That's the genius of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So look, I'm willing to let this play out. And I get more and more encouraged, right? The more I read from the left about this whole story, the more I get encouraged. I read this great piece in CNN here. I don't know the author, but it's from CNN. It's an editorial, of course. And dude, as much as we know this new Michael Wolff book to be total Michael Crichton tier thriller fiction, Democrats take this very seriously. CNN saying Democrats should take stock and think about the implications of Michael Wolff's new blockbuster book, which makes the case that the president is unfit to hold office. They should consider the way Republicans pushed through an unpopular massive corporate tax cut in the final days of 2017. I love how they're trying to make this seem like, oh, it's so unpopular, but like every time people actually do their own taxes now, they're realizing like, holy shit, I'm keeping more of my own money. Like this tax bill might be unpopular until April, dude. like then I expect the numbers to definitely shift. Both elements, that's when people, of course, do their own taxes. Both elements should throw some cold water on every congressional Democrat who's thinking about striking any kind of deal with the president. Democrats need to agree on a strategy for how they will deal with a very conservative and very unstable president. With the very unstable just means very unpredictable, okay? Like, if you're out there and you don't know what they mean by very unstable, that is what they mean. Very unstable means that he's not caving and conceding and playing by the rules that they've set for every Republican president in the past, and that every Republican president in our lifetimes has conceded and given into, okay? When they say unstable, it may seem like they're trying to say, oh, he's mentally unfit, he's schizophrenic. No, it just means he's not cowed and owned by the same rules that they try to apply to every other Republican. They apply successfully to every other Republican.
Yeah. That whole narrative that has existed for the longest time about, I mean, since really Jeb Bush with the chaos candidate and the chaos White House, I mean, that's exactly right, is he's not playing by the rules. And as a result, they cannot compete with him. They will not be able to compete on the same level because the rules that they bind themselves to, and really which the system is built upon, to prevent people like Donald Trump, it has tied their hands. And now you have somebody like Trump who is disrupting the system, disrupting the status quo with very disruptive and unprecedented techniques. And I don't even mean unprecedented like crazy, but just like there's no precedent really in modern American history where you would have somebody like Trump and using the technologies he's using and the skills he's using and everything else. And that's exactly right. They will try and pin it on him that he's mentally unstable or whatever. And that may be owing to, I don't know, some kind of a play at the presidency where they can exercise the cabinet's constitutional right to vote to remove the president, or that's part of a play to get the American public to see the president as less legitimate than the special counsel or the Congress or the judiciary or something. But I mean, the fact remains that Donald Trump cannot be competed with because he is controlling the pace, he's controlling the narrative, and he's doing that because he's able to adapt more quickly and he's able to dictate the course of events. He's wielding his bully pulpit more effectively, I think, than any president in modern history. And so, I mean, that's all there is to it. And, people can see this. I think people intuitively understand what's going on here. People can see that Trump says something and the media loses their minds. And ironically, that plays into his hand even more when he tweets something outrageous and the media goes ballistic and people say, well, there it is. There's the tail wagging the dog there. So you're right. There's nothing to it. He's disruptive. That's the nature of the election, of the candidate, of the White House. And they're just salty that they're getting their asses kicked.
Right, and this article goes on to say that Democrats have two options. Democrats need to agree on a strategy, for how to deal with Donald Trump. With the midterm elections looming over everything that takes place between now and November, Democrats will have two basic choices on the table: make a deal or do their best to obstruct. The obstruction route would take a page right out of the Tea Party playbook that worked pretty well for the GOP under President Barack Obama. This route, favored by progressive groups like Indivisible in battles such as healthcare, would have Democrats refuse to enter into any major negotiations over policy. President Trump's agenda would languish and deny him any legislative victories that Republicans can then run on in November. Now, go ahead, dude. If you're a Democrat, please try to obstruct. Please be the obstructionist party. Because if you do that and you refuse to enter into any negotiations, your pets, your anchor baby making machines are going to be rounded up, thrown in semi-trucks, and sent back where they came from while you sit and impotently watch because you refuse to make a deal. That's the thing people don't recognize here, is that if Democrats decide to be obstructionist, this is a time bomb. DACA, this whole article is about DACA. This is a time bomb that the Democrats really, they're strapped into the chair and they can either cut the wire or, out of principle, refuse to cut the wire. If they refuse to cut that wire, their very cherished base is getting blown up. Their interests are getting blown up right in front of them, and these people are going to be sent back because, again, this thing dies in March. right? Trump legally cannot extend DACA. There are federal lawsuits, 11 of them, I believe, that are standing in the way of Trump extending DACA. And DACA is going to actually be ruled unconstitutional here very soon. So, yeah, Democrats don't want to play ball. More power to them. They're just going to look like children in front of their base, and they're going to be proceeding over the deportation of millions and millions and millions of their base.
Right. It's true. It's true. All true. Everything that we predicted, I think, for the most part about Trump is coming true. I mean, the strategic mindset that we saw and everything else. I think, James, for you and the kind of the black pill skeptic with regards to Trump camp, I mean, are you getting it now in terms of, because for the longest time, you kind of denied that Trump was 4D. You denied the four-dimensionality of his strategy and of his presidency. You said, oh, well, he listened to us on Syria. He listened to us on DACA, and he got lucky maybe in the campaign here and there. I mean, are you buying the 4D chess narrative yet? Are you sold?
I think there's certainly strategy involved. Yeah, there's strategy, and absolutely there is a strategic way that you move your pawns in order to capture the queen, in order to capture the king, right? In order to get the checkmate that you want. And there are millions and millions of pawns spread across the legislature, spread across the media, and there is certainly an element of strategy to it, of course. Let's, as soon as it's in US code, I will be out there with my MAGA hat back on and saying, yes, Donald, you outsmarted these people and you got them. I'm just conditioned after years and years of being a political observer and watching things develop politically, conditioned to not celebrate too early. Now, we can certainly acknowledge these are very good developments, certainly acknowledge that the blueprint is there for success. And Godspeed to Trump to thread that needle and to follow this blueprint to success. Certainly. And of course, and when he does, then I'll be the loudest one cheering for him. But I caution against premature celebration of victory before we actually see these things done. Yeah, I mean, and not just with Trump. I mean, with other presidents and other candidates. We've seen people who come out with things you think are great and very smart and great ideas, and then they just kind of don't happen. Things just go their own way. So yeah, definitely. Like, dude, this makes sense. This whole blueprint is here. Now, I'm just counting on Trump and the legislature to hold the line and force, the revolver is in the Democrats' head. It's loaded and it's their decision whether they want to pull the trigger now or pull the trigger later. Like this game of Russian roulette is not working out well for them.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's a pretty sound perspective. And yeah, you're right. I mean, they are in a terrible position. And I think a lot of that owes to the fact that they did not expect Donald Trump to win. I think a big part of what you're seeing from DACA to the IG report, so much of what's going on, I think, can be attributed to the Democrats' unpreparedness, or not even the Democrats, but just the establishment altogether, whether it's the media or the Democrats or the bureaucrats or everybody else. I mean, they were just so unprepared. They really got caught with their pants around their ankles when they got surprised with Trump in the White House. And I mean, that's why you see it falling apart.
They got the plane up in the air. They were flying the jetliner, and then they threw it in autopilot and let a 12-year-old take control of the reins, and then autopilot failed. Dude, autopilot stopped working, and now you're it's like the plane's still gliding, but dude, you have engine failure, you have like cabin pressure problems, you have your ailerons blowing out, you have your wingtips falling out, like things are starting to fall apart for them, and they have no idea how the fuck to manage it, because the pilot's taken off, and it's the children are flying the plane now, and they don't know how to respond to this. They were just counting on autopilot to get them to their destination, but as it turns out, not sufficient.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, really, to see unfold, because we've witnessed this whole deal go on for 8 years with Obama and the Clintons, and just the blatant criminality of it. I mean, even in the Congress, with the way they've been allowing immigration to continue like it has for 50 years, beyond like the Fox News stuff about unconstitutional amnesty or, unconstitutional executive orders. Yeah. What the Congress has been doing is downright treasonous. So that we finally got somebody in there that is going to smash some skulls and break necks. It's good. Obviously, like you said, it's, we have to, it has to happen. We have to see it happen. And before we get all excited and get our hopes up, but I am excited. I am hopeful, and we'll wait for the follow through and the execution of it. But I am highly white pilled about, inside and outside the game, because it is going on both fronts, superficially in the legislature where policy plays out, but also within the government where the purge is happening and some of these interests are getting beat back, the negotiations. And Trump is, I think, playing the game very well, leveraging elements against each other and really seeing the whole ball game and using everything that's out there. Whereas I think the impulse for a lot of politicians, and it has been for a long time, maybe because of the way our school system works, it's a very linear way of thinking where it's, we want immigration to end, make immigration illegal, go into the Congress, pass a law. You want North Korea to stop using their nuclear weapons, go in there and take them. You want Iran to stop being a bully, go in there and knock them down. And I think Trump is really, he has this more balanced, this more holistic worldview where it's using pressure, it's using leverage, it's balancing different things. And I think that's the most white pilling thing about it, I think, is the competence. And not to go total Bill Mitchell there, but I really am encouraged by what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Yep. Blueprint's there. Just follow the path. Stay on the straight and narrow, and we will have success. Speaking of success, I hear that your interview with Mrs. Loomer did very, very well. How did that go this Wednesday? That was a Thursday, wasn't it?
Yeah. It went well. Did you
find out who controls the banks and the media?
We did. We got to the bottom of it. We found out who it was at long last. No, but she was good. She was very frank. She was very straightforward, honest. Look, I know you guys don't get along. I know a lot of people are not crazy about her. I've never had beef with her or anything. I didn't really know that much about her until I started looking into her for this interview to ask her effective questions and everything. And I don't know. She seemed pretty pleasant. Obviously, we didn't meet in person, so I can't, corroborate any claims about her proclivities, certain temperaments that she has in certain situations. That said, when she was on the show, she was quick, she was smart, and I appreciated her coming on and being honest about it. Who knows what the motive was there, but I thought it was good.
Certainly. We would never repeat these things if it weren't for documenting and exposing hatred. But what was her conclusion about who controls the banks and the media?
Well, this is her words. All right. And this is coming from, that's right.
We would know.
I would never say anything. I'm the least kind of person of any stripe, bigot, racist, whatever have you. But in the words of the Jewiest Jew of them all, and that's what she calls herself.
Self-described.
She says the Jews control the media and the banks. And, look, of course, highly white supremacist kind of mindset that, right. That is. But, I don't know. I looked at the data. It's hard to argue with it. That's all I'm going to say. I look at NBC, CNN, New York Times. I look at the names, look at some of the affiliations there. I don't know. Maybe she's onto something, there. But you got to watch the show. It's very good, for people that are listening to this. You got to watch the show. It was factual. Even my parents, who are boomers, they were like, "No, that was really well done." That wasn't, because they were so nervous going into it. They're like, "You got to be careful. You got to handle this the right way." But if boomers thought it was acceptable, then this is a good subtle red pill for you and your buddies, your friends.
Sure. And I think that she's certainly an interesting character. Not gonna I don't think I need to get too far into that. She's certainly an interesting character indeed. And you can look into Loomer and come to your own conclusions about her. She's what she is. she's de-verified on Twitter, which probably she shouldn't have been. But and her affiliations and allegiances are, of course, deeply concerning, and the interests she have. So don't mistake her for some kind of like base. For those of you who don't know, don't mistake her for like one of us or like our guy or like an American nationalist. Like she absolutely is not. But yeah, interesting stuff. Glad to hear that it went well and went cordially.
Yeah. No, I was pleasantly surprised because I know, she has kind of a reputation, even with you and with, some of the people that we know.
With everybody, with
everybody. Yeah, true. But yeah, no, she was pleasant and yeah, but yeah, I agree. I mean, she and we reached this conclusion that we don't agree on everything. Like we obviously don't have the same ideology. And so, yeah, I mean, she's definitely not like alt-right or our guy or our gal rather, or anything like that. But I mean, on this issue, she was pretty solid, I gotta say. So beware.
But you disagree and disavow her statement that Jews control the media and Jews control banks, because that's obviously hateful.
Of course, that is that is Nazi tier rhetoric from the Jewish Laura Lilbert.
Right. Well, yeah. Glad to hear that you were not totally consumed by the Khazar milkers.
That was a concern going into it. No, but fortunately, I am immunized by the cat boy against all temptations by the Khazar milkers. So I was yeah. So it was
not sure how to feel about that. But
It went optimally.
Nice. All right. So let's do. We got a couple minutes left. Let's touch on the mailbag real quick. Answer a couple questions. Dan says, "What do you think of Jeff Sessions' attack on the pot men? I don't think pot is good, but unless we in the West do some Duterte-style crackdown, the problem won't go away." Yeah, we talked about that at the start of this hour. Basically, I'm not a big fan of pot myself. I don't believe people should do it. I believe it is detrimental to people's health and people's best interest. But look, bigger fish to fry, bigger problems to address in America right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I would like to see weed laws being enforced like brutally. I think there's kind of this like Milton Friedman neoliberal type thing going on that it's like, well, we can't enforce the law. People get weed all the time, and that means, well, we should just throw in the towel, give up, stop, just let people smoke weed and all the rest because we're all helpless. But no, I think the opposite. We gotta rigorously enforce this. Make people afraid, like Duterte. And I know that's not going to play well with the libertarian crowd, but it's true. I mean, weed destroys the country. If weed ever becomes as prolific as alcohol, I mean, we're finished. Imagine going up against, as a workforce, as soldiers, like as a society in totality, against the Chinese. The Chinese, where they're going to school and they're rigorous about their studies and, they're focused and they believe in their nation and they believe in themselves and they have honor for the family. Maybe that's stereotypical. Or even you look at Africans and Muslims, where they come over here and they're on a mission from God and they're on a mission for Allah and for, their Muslim people and for their country and everything. And our people are going to be sitting around smoking pot, eating Doritos, watching Rick and Morty. Can't have it. So it's got to go. But I agree. There are bigger fish to fry, so to speak.
Yeah. Yep. Second question here from Nate. He says, after watching the Sargon versus Spencer debate and seeing everyone's reaction to Styx, what do you think of his beliefs regarding religion? Like how he hates organized religion and Christianity, preferring spirituality. I've been thinking about this since Sargon, and he used Mormonism as an attack against white monogamy. The thing Spencer said about Mormon polygamy was used as a survival mechanism was correct. I thought it was ridiculous. They tried to get Spencer to shut up about this, but he was actually right. I'll admit I didn't watch the Sargon-Spencer debate. I had other things to do when that was going on, and I don't really want to go back and watch a 3-hour debate. But everything I've seen, and I haven't watched, but I've like read comments on like other recap videos from people, including like libertarians, like this Mr. Dapperton guy on YouTube who did like a video like recap of it. And the general response from everybody inside and outside of the alt-right is that is that Sargon got thoroughly BTFO, and his argument hinged on, oh, you can't determine what a white person is for an ethno-state. And Sargon was trying to reduce Richard's argument for, you know, white identity and for white nationalism into, well, you can't determine who's white. In the formation of an ethno-state, people would be hurt and people would be kicked out. And it's like, yeah, you know, okay, those are all like, you know, sure, whatever. Yes, it may require some, you know, government force, but everything requires government force. I mean, Sargon is okay with like, with government using force to tax people to pay for like welfare benefits. So he's conceded government force is okay. It was just a very ideologically incoherent position from Sargon. He was trying to reduce, it was reductio ad absurdum. He was trying to, you know, reduce these things to these minutia that distracted from the main argument. These red herrings, get going down these red herring chases. That's what I've heard about it anyways from pretty much everybody. Big win for Richard, apparently. Yeah. I don't know about Sticks though. In terms of Sticks, I don't know. You know, he's attacked me before for attacking Kilroy a bit. Really? Yeah, like I've done a live stream with Sticks. I don't have anything against him. I think he seems like a you know, decent guy. I just don't watch his content. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't catch the Spencer Sargon debate either, but no, it was good to see somebody from our side humiliate him, because I mean, these people are pseudo intellectuals, the skeptics, the left libertarians, these, you know, that type of person. I mean, these people are pseudo intellectuals. They're frauds. And I think Spencer hit the nail on his head when he said that Sargon thinks he's smarter than he is. And that defines the entire movement. That defines the Neil deGrasse Tyson, the Bill Nye, the I effing love science crowd, the Reddit crowd. I mean, that's this whole group of people where, you know, they think they've got it all figured out. And, you know, like they said on the Christmas message, like I posted in the Christmas message, if you recall, the people that heard the cry of Jesus Christ, the people that heard that the Savior was born, there was two classes of people: the shepherds who knew they knew nothing, and the wise men who knew they did not know everything. And that's kind of my philosophy for life, you know. And these skeptics, they think they know everything, and that's why they will never make it happen. These people are frauds.
110 IQ in a 130 IQ clothing, for sure.
That's right.
They are punching above their weight with a lot of this stuff. And their argument boils down from the skeptics. Usually the argument boils down to, you're a collectivist. Right. Like this is their argument. It's like, you're a collectivist, therefore you're a right-wing SJW, therefore everything you say is invalid. And for a movement, for an intellectual movement, a self-described intellectual movement, I don't want to grant them that much credence, that prides themselves, or says they pride themselves in being skeptical and being very rational and thinking about things and arguing positions and you know, essentially being pretty fucking smart is how they present themselves. For them to be that intellectually lazy and to be, frankly, that stupid is very telling, right? If your argument is essentially, oh, you're a collectivist, there's really, okay, sure, like, so was everybody else throughout all of human history. This idea of radical individualism is a concept that didn't exist until like the post 1960s. So great, I'm a collectivist, fine, whatever. If you can double down on that collectivism, you will totally throw a wrench in these people's arguments, because they have nothing beyond, you're a collectivist. It's like, okay, yeah, I am. You know, this is like the discussion about identity politics, where they say, you know, Sargon will be like, you're just a Nazi using identity politics like a left-wing SJW would. It's like, okay, yeah, I'm using identity politics. Everybody does. All politics are identity politics. You wanting to be an individualist is a form of identity politics, because your identity now is individualism. Your identity is, and the interest group you're fighting for, the identity group you're fighting for, are individualists fighting against collectivists. So you are taking a side, Sargon, whether you like it or not. You're taking a side for your identity and interest group. And when everyone else does it for a different interest group, you can't then turn around and say, oh, you don't get the right to do that because you're just like a Nazi or an SJW. It's like, no, everybody has an interest group. Everybody has an identity group. And your political decisions and your political positions are informed by your allegiances to your identity groups.
Right.
For everybody.
Well, and they don't even define what collectivism is. I mean, that's my biggest problem with Turning Point and the skeptics and the individualists, the libertarians, is collectivism is the big bad boogeyman in the sky. You know, it's the bad thing. And I used to be anti-collectivism when I was a libertarian. And then you figure out what collectivism is. And I would challenge any one of these bastards to define what collectivism is for you. They can't. Collectivism merely means in-group preference. And would anybody deny that any human being on planet Earth does not exercise in-group preference on a daily basis, consciously and subconsciously? In-group preference for your family, for your nation, for your race, your religion. This is natural. This is healthy. This is an evolutionary process for how we exist as social animals. And what the individualists make it out to be is just like this, like a Disney Channel argument where collectivism is groupthink. Collectivism is when you're a conformist, when, you know, well, we're the people of the exception. We're the people of the unique individual. And really individualism is built on a foundation of moral relativism, where if you read Mill, if you read Locke, if you read the libertarians, a big part of why they say we need liberty is because, well, nobody knows what's good or bad for any given person. Nobody knows what's good or bad for the society. We need people to go out there and experiment. They need to have the liberty to go out there and try new things and try what's best for them. Well, that's all wrong. We know what's good for people. We know what's right for people. It's all there. There is a traditional...
Plato, yeah, sorry. Oh, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, Plato disproved this like centuries ago, right? Where if you accept moral relativism, then you are logically forced to accept that no act can be moral or immoral, because everything can be reduced to there will always be someone who can find that relativist position and can take a moral position that every act in the world is acceptable. For it to accept moral relativism is to accept that morality itself does not exist.
Right. Right. And I think that's the biggest problem. And moreover, it's generalizations. I mean, they're at war with difference itself. It's this premise that we are all, you know, humans first, and there's no real differences between humans. There's no categorizing them into genders, into races, into nations. And that's just so asinine. Like, nobody would say that a Great Dane is the same as a poodle. Like, yeah, they're both dogs, but nobody would say that there are trivial differences between different breeds of dogs. But somehow people have it that the social and biological differences between human beings have no bearing on how we relate to them, on how we judge policy for them. And these are just like, you understand then why political correctness exists. It's to abrogate all of these facts, because you start talking about race and IQ. You start talking about evolutionary strategy, evolutionary biology for groups. And you start talking about these things and all the premises on which individualism and this culture is built, it all collapses. All these presuppositions that are made without interrogation fall apart when you start entering into the equation. Well, actually, groups are real. There's a factual basis for them. And so when people say, well, we have preference to one over the other, or, you know, we want them here or there, or, you know, there has to be a difference between them, well, then there's a basis for that, in the same way that you would treat different things differently. And so, you know, it explains so much. That's why it was a really good thing that this debate happened in the first place, to get those ideas.
I do find it, yeah, definitely. And I do find it ironic, too, that these people are often the same people who will champion the virtues of Western civilization yeah. and they'll champion the West and at the same time condemn collectivism. Well, how do you think the West was created without collectives? How do you think Western civilization was developed and built without people organizing together around their common interests and establishing societies that reflected those interests and reflected those values? You know, without collectivism, we would be living like these South American tribes that live essentially in small communes of like 4 people, and you know, are essentially hand to mouth living. Right? You need collectivism to work towards common goals. You would literally not be able to build society without collectivism in some form. So collectivism as this great skeptic boogeyman is highly ironic, especially when these people are the same ones talking about how we love Western civilization. Murdoch did, you know, the video. The Cruel Death of Kekistan a while ago. And there was a great line in there where I think it was Murdoch says, you know, the tragedy of the skeptics is that they love the fruits of Western civilization, yet don't understand what it entails to preserve Western civilization. I'm kind of paraphrasing there. But that is, I think, so accurate because these people, they claim to love the free speech values. They love the West. They love Western society. There's a reason all of these people live in white Western countries, and none of them live, I think with the exception of like Black Pigeon Speaks, but he's like our guy, and he lives in Japan. All of these skeptics live in either the United States or the UK or in some Western European country where free speech is more or less protected. Free speech, for what they're saying anyways, is more or less protected. Certainly some stories out of Germany this week where free speech is not at all protected, of course. But there's a reason these people live in the West. And they like Western values. And yet they will make these overtures towards Western values, towards protecting the West. Yet they will at the same time, in the same breath, condemn the very way the West was formed. They'll condemn the very blueprint used to assemble Western society, to assemble Western civilization itself, which is collectivism.
Right. All true. All true. Skeptics BTFO.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that they won't debate that. Like you and I don't get invited on by this. Well, I suppose they don't have a way of inviting me anymore because certain social media platforms being disabled, but often not invited onto these things, often not invited to participate. They'll invite Richard, and Richard is, from what I saw, made very good arguments for these things. But they invite Richard because they want to get him, right? They want to set him up and get him and trap him. And I'm not saying that about Andy Worski. I think Andy Worski had a very good intent, but someone like Sargon will debate Richard because he wants to have the crowning moment where he BTFOs Richard Spencer, the prominent alt-right Nazi, and they want to have that moment. They don't actually want to debate the ideas. That they want to have the kill shot. They want the clickbait. They want the BTFOing moment. Yet they won't debate people who are not as of high prominence as them because they don't want to debate the idea. This is the same fundamental reason why Will Chamberlain would debate. I guess he wouldn't even debate me, but he wouldn't debate like Mike Enoch, for example, because he didn't want to get he didn't want to get. Well, I guess that's a different reason. He didn't want to get blown the fuck out by Mike Enoch.
Yeah,
he thought he could handle me. He couldn't handle you even, but. Yeah. Skeptics BTFO. Again, if you want to debate us, guys, we have our means of contact here in the episode description. So hit us up if you want to debate. All right. Well, that I think does it. We've reached the end of the hour, a couple minutes over, but that is okay, of course. Thanks everybody for listening. If you want to support us, head on over to patreon.com/America First Media. You can support us there. We are just a few weeks away from launching our subscription service on the website, where we will be flattening the rates out, just $10 a month. So if you're on the $15 a month level, I think most of our followers on the Patreon are at the $15 a month level. I believe that is accurate. So for you, you're getting a cut. If you're getting a pay cut, I should say, or a rate cut. If you're at the $7 a month level, it's a $3 increase. That comes out to about like one energy drink, one energy drink a month to help us fund this. Tomorrow, Monday, will be the launch of my new show, the James Alsop Show. I think we're going to call it. I think we're just going to go very simple with it. Not try to get overly creative here. And that's going to be tentatively every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, possibly every Wednesday as well. Waiting to see that. So yeah, guys, this is a good time to get in. So if you want to help us support what we're doing, want to help us out, you're going to be getting, Nick, your show usually goes about an hour and a half every night, right?
Right.
America First. So, okay, let's say an hour and 15. So that's 5.5 hours of content every week from your end. I'm going to be doing my show 5 hours a week. So 10 and a half hours a week. You're getting at least one Nationalist review, which is like usually 2.5 hours. So that puts you at what?
12 3/4.
Yeah. 12 3/4. Plus, I'm going to be writing 4 or 5 articles a week for the site. And dude, you're looking at quite a bit of content from just us. Not to mention the fact we're going to be hiring and bringing on several new people. We got the discussions in the works. They'll be very exciting to tell you about as soon as they're finalized. So Yeah, you're getting approximately, and your Friday show usually goes long, so you're getting approximately 15 hours of video and audio content a week. You're getting, and that's all for free, by the way, 15 hours of free video audio content, plus the articles, plus everything else we do, plus the social media, for $10 a month, dude. It's, if you want us to be able to create effective propaganda, you want us to be able to get the message out, you want us to be able to do activism and be out there doing this, it won't be possible. It will not be possible without your help and support, which we graciously appreciate from everybody who supports us now. But we would like, if you can spare the cash, $10 a month, you get access to some special things. You'll get access to the entire back catalog of all of Nick's video shows. You'll get access to some more special benefits we can't disclose yet, but we will be able to when we launch the paywall. $10 a month, great value. Great value. So stay tuned for that to be launching here very soon. And in the meantime, in the interim, we do accept donations and gifts via PayPal if you want to do PayPal. Also via Bitcoin if you want to do that. Our Bitcoin wallet address is on the website. So, and it's on the episode description too. So that about does it for us. We're at the end of the hour. I need to get some water. My throat's drying up real bad here. I think that just about does it. So thanks everybody for listening. Nick, anything else? Anything I should be including here before we go?
Yes, tomorrow on America First, we'll be having Paul Nealon on as a guest. He invited himself on, which I I like it. I like his style.
Alpha move.
Yeah, right. Totally. And who am I? Who am I to say no to the great Paul Nealon? So he'll be coming on the show tomorrow night to talk about it, and we'll try and get him on a Nationalist Review in the coming weeks as well. But stay tuned for that and other great content this week. We'll be doing a deep dive on a lot of what's going on with the IG report, with some of these other investigations, and it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Nealon planned for either this Saturday or this upcoming Saturday or the Saturday after. So stay tuned for that. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We do appreciate it. And we'll see you all on Wednesday. If not on Wednesday, then on Saturday for Nationalist Review. Thanks for listening.